It's a whole mode you got to move in and out of.
All right.
Vocal exercises.
I'm just checking the gain on stuff. You know, I don't know. I still, you'd think like 37 of these in, I'd know what I was doing.
No, because you do the first one and it's like, all right, here's what we have to do to make this work at all.
Yeah.
And then that becomes what you do every time.
It's just the thing that we do, yeah.
It becomes the whole procedure every time.
Yeah. I'm going to turn you down a little.
Yeah, that's probably good. I'm
in the monitor.
A little hot, I think.
So how's that?
Yeah, that seems...
Does that sound better balance?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And do you want...
I hadn't actually talked loud yet, so yeah.
Yeah, you're like, let me check this. Do you need me to turn you up overall?
No, I think I'm okay now. Yeah.
You okay?
Yeah.
All right. Ready.
I mean, I'm not okay, but like... I sound all right.
There's like a whole...
that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to be here for a while.
There's like a Nothingface song off of the Skeletons record that they put out at like 2003 or something, which I didn't give a shit about the first Nothingface CD.
I didn't give a shit about any of them.
But that's second. That might not. I don't know if that's the second one or whatever. But it's called Skeletons. Okay. That's one of my favorite records of all time.
Wow!
Like every song, I love it. I still listen to it.
Some really unexpected records come up sometimes, and it's like where you're just like, it's one of my favorite records of all time. I'm like,
yeah, I say that a lot.
Oh, okay, yeah.
but it'll be.
But you can have a lot, so it's fine.
It's weird because it'll be so focused. There's like this whole subset of albums that I like where that is the only album from that artist,
right?
That I really really fuck with. You know,
you just find an album from a genre, like a niche that just works. And that's kind of all you need.
Or it just hits me at the right time.
Right. Yeah.
You know? And I think that's what that Nothingface album was. And it's like, cause so part of the new metal thing, like that we've sort of talked about was sort of like, how do you fuck with those dials and still keep it in that vibe? And on that second record, they did it in a pretty interesting way with the vocals. Like the lyrics are really interesting. The vocal delivery is really interesting without, like, he's not a great singer, but like, when I say like a great singer, like he's not like Chad Gray or Corey Taylor, like where he's just going to belt shit out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like a Howard Jones or something.
Like a traditionally.
Yeah.
Objectively good singer.
But they found really interesting ways for him to get the melodic singing thing done in a way that is emotionally impactful. It works for me. For me. But then he's also like not like a great screamer either. Like he's not, you know, but then they solve that problem in like an interesting way. And because the lyrics, because it feels really sincere, there's something that feels honest about it. Mm-hmm. You know, it works really well for me.
I'm having trouble placing what they even sound like. Because that's one of those bands that just falls into that big old lump of, you know, turn of the century new metal-ish adjacent acts.
Yeah, if you would have heard,
I'm sure I probably fucking saw them at like Ozfest or something like that.
We might have seen them with Pantera.
Maybe was it the Astro Arena show?
Maybe
if they were there,
they might have been there. And I might have seen them live with Mudvayne too.
The sequel to Mudvayne.
Yeah, but they have there's like a song where they're like, I'm not all right, but I'm okay. And like it works in the context of it. And I remember like have very specific memories of listening to that song in 2005 during the Hurricane Rita evacuation and being like, yeah, I feel this.
Damn. Did y'all actually evacuate for that?
This would have been, if you would have heard one of their songs. This was the one that was on like Headbangers Ball or Freddy vs. Jason or something. Like, but that, you know what I mean? That vibe.
Yeah. That's one of those songs that was on, you know, Headbangers Ball, Freddy vs. Jason.
Dude!
But I know exactly, you're right. But just the fact that you can say that and have it make sense is fucking ludicrous.
Yeah. Well, there was like a little period there in like 2003 to like 2005 where like that shit's still really, really battered.
Yeah.
Where like placement, like the placement of your band on a soundtrack or the placement of a band on a Headbangers Ball compilation or something like that. Like that shit could totally like make your band.
Did they do albums for Headbangers Ball?
They did.
I don't
have
remember
two
any
of
of
them.
those. Oh wow. Okay.
I wore one of them almost the fuck out. That was what got me. That was. It's gonna sound weird to say. Like got me back into Marilyn Manson because I had sort of like trailed off, but there was a song of his on there that like did it for me. So I like picked up Golden Age of the Grotesque and whatnot, and picked it back up.
So I guess that was when Headbangers Ball came back around, right? Like on
Yeah.
MTV2.
Say that again.
On MTV2.
Yes.
It must have been.
Yes. MTV2 Headbangers Ball.
Because I guess I don't even really remember that because I only remember the original, like with. Was it still Matt Penfield? No, it wasn't Matt Penfield. He did 120 minutes. Ricky Ragman.
Yeah.
It was like the early 90s, late 80s stuff.
I have almost no memories of watching Headbangers Ball on MTV2 because the only place I could watch it was at John's house. He was the only person I knew who had that. And, and I was there a lot, but I wasn't there enough. I wasn't there when Headbangers Ball was on, I guess. But I bought those albums.
Right.
You know, and there was a lot of cool shit on there. That might have been where I heard Lamb of God's second album, like the stuff off of their second album, like 11th Hour. There was
Wait, what was their first album?
No.
They did Burn the Priest, but that was. Are you counting?
No. I had bought New American Gospel, which was their first proper album,
right?
As Lamb of God, but I didn't really get it.
Well, no, I just forgot that New American Gospel existed.
Got it.
That was my hang up there.
And so then when As the Palaces Burns came out, I didn't immediately go and pick it up.
Yeah.
But then I heard there was like the song like 11th Hour, like I forget which was on which, but the song like 11th Hour was on, one was on Freddy versus Jason, and then the other one was on the Headbangers Ball compilation. And so I was like, well, clearly this is fucking God tier shit. I have to buy this immediately. So
yes, but yeah, there was like that period of time, late 90s, early 2000s, when against all odds or reason, horror movie soundtracks were just like banging.
Yeah,
that was like the fucking place to be if you were a new metal band.
It was a weird,
or even traditional metal, really.
Yeah, it was this really weird intersection, and I almost feel like that was the last. That was like one of the last hurrahs and like the last sort of things where like all the infrastructure of the movie industry or all the infrastructure of the music industry, that they could actually kind of dictate what was popular. Like where they could, dictate's too strong of a word, but they could
influence,
yeah,
strongly influence.
Right. And it's like, all right, well, if we put this, if we push to have this band on this soundtrack, and then we push to get them on Ozfest, and then we get their merch and Hot Topic, and then that's gonna you know, like,
yeah.
And this was all because that's the thing that like a lot of people don't know about Ozfest or don't realize about Ozfest is like they didn't like actually. My understanding is, I mean, maybe not in some cases, but I think for like the smaller bands or whatever, like they didn't pay those bands to be on Ozfest.
It was just exposure.
Yeah.
There's literally
the opposite. Even like the label would pay for them to be on Ozfest. Like there would be like a buy-in.
They were buying exposure in that case.
Yeah. That's my understanding that
Wild.
was that's what the case was for a lot of, you know. I mean, but it's like, not to just turn into like, oh, shit on record labels or whatever, but or shit on that or that whatever, but like I mean, yes, absolutely. But if you're looking at it from like a business mindset or whatever, like that might be a real smart investment, you know, to like,
oh sure, yeah,
you know, put up the money it takes for those guys to survive for the 3 months they're on tour, and you know, then now everyone knows who the fuck they are.
Yeah,
you know. So, but that was all happening around that same time, where you had Ozfest at its peak. You had,
because that was 96 was the first one, right?
Yes,
I think so. Yeah.
yes.
Because I'm thinking of all the stuff like, not even always horror movies, but like Escape from L.A. soundtrack, Spawn, and Bride of Chucky, and like the Final Destination. And
Yeah,
stuff
or
like
like
that.
even like Punisher, even like the Punisher, which I forget which Punisher movie, which if it was Warzone or the other one, but they put out a Punisher movie during that time period that had a bunch of stuff on. The Queen of the Damned.
Great choice. Yeah, great one.
Had all that stuff, and
Exactly.
and the to me, like one of the OG, right, like the of this whole thing.
The Crow.
Yes.
The progenitor of that
Yes,
sort of thing.
yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah. Man,
Totally.
what a fucking album.
Yeah, which was 94?
Yeah.
93, 94, something like that.
The sequel, the one for City of Angels, is really amazing also.
I remember that also being good. It had the Filter song on it, I think.
And
what was on
Boogeyman, the Rob Zombie /
yeah.
White. Well, it says White Zombie, but it's Rob Zombie.
Yeah. Well, it's because it was on Super Sexy Swinging Sounds, wasn't it?
No,
They didn't
it
put it
wasn't.
on. I thought they put it on there.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But it was released like right at that. I think it was right at that transition between White Zombie and Rob Zombie.
Right.
So it was technically a White Zombie song, but it ain't a White Zombie song.
Yeah.
And there was a cool Hole song on there, I remember.
Oh, man.
So, but yeah, like those sit. That first Crow soundtrack is in a category all by itself.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Maybe you could say that another one that kind of fits in that same vein with me, but for different reasons in different ways, is the Natural Born Killers soundtrack.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot off that soundtrack, just bits and pieces.
Well, it's really more of like a reflection of like if you just heard the Crow soundtrack as like a mixtape, you'd be like, my God, what a holy shit, what an amazing collection of songs.
Yep.
The Natural Born Killers soundtrack, because of the way that music is used in the movie, and the soundtrack also intercuts scenes and pieces of dialogue.
Right.
So it almost recreates the experience of the movie. It's like it's like a different way to experience the movie.
Right.
Because you're hearing a little piece of dialogue, and then you hear the full song. But there's that piece of dialogue that like sets the scene, so you have the imagery in your head.
Right. If you've seen the movie, you know like what part you're supposed to be referring to.
And there was, like that was when I got exposed to like Leonard Cohen, for instance, was on the Natural Born Killers soundtrack, and like was it Nusrat Ali Khan? Was it Qawwali, the style of singing that he does? But
Unfamiliar.
Anyway, but
why the hell is it not on their Wikipedia page?
What?
The soundtrack.
So,
because I'm trying to think of what it was on that soundtrack though.
Which one?
Natural Born Killers.
Oh.
Because there was like, I remember it was that was an album that I never actually bought it because there were so few songs that I already knew on it. So I could never make that cost justification work. Okay. I can't even remember what it was though.
Lost Highway was another one.
Okay, fucking Cowboy Junkies was on there. That's good. Oh, they had a Nine Inch Nails song. I guess that's probably what it was.
Burn.
Oh, a couple of them. Something I Can Never Have.
Right. Burn is only on there though. Or it's not on an album. Maybe it showed up on an EP or a B-side to a single or something else.
I was like, well, isn't that the song on The Crow? But no, that's the Cure song on The Crow.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The Nine Inch Nails song on The Crow is Dead Souls.
Yes.
Okay. With the rooftop scene, which is
yeah. Good.
So good.
Yeah. That era of soundtracks for typically horror adjacent, but it could be anything really.
Well,
This has some really good soundtracks.
Well,
during
they
this time.
serve the purpose of what, like a Spotify playlist serves now.
I guess I don't know what purpose a Spotify playlist serves now. Is my problem.
Well, so like you might go and like, oh well, new dark metal or whatever, NEW or whatever, and it's gonna be like, it's gonna be like 30 songs or whatever, but it's gonna be, oh, here's the new Behemoth, here's the new this, here's the new that, blah 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 blah, and it's sort of like different radio stations or whatever, and it updates every week depending on what new albums came out and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
These soundtracks in a lot of ways would function as that for like a given month.
Yeah, sure. It's a good sampler of where things were at.
Right.
Very broadly,
And but like music that you weren't going to hear, like you weren't going to hear these songs or this collection of songs on.
You're not going to hear this song anywhere but on your anyway.
In your car
on this movie soundtrack, and that's the bottom line.
That's the way it should be.
Stone Cold said so.
But yeah, like you weren't going to hear like all the stuff on the Crow soundtrack. You weren't going to hear that on the radio. You might stumble upon something and hear one of those at one time or something like that. But so it was a way to get exposed to. It was a way to get exposed to a curated set of music.
Yeah.
And so, and it's crazy to think about like the effort that goes into getting a soundtrack produced. That's just for like that you could just like go and find any fucking dick shit playlist or whatever, and like here's a curated list of music, boom, bah.
Right.
Let me go get exposed to some new stuff that already has some stuff in it that I know I like.
Yeah, because I can't even really think of what soundtracks today are like in that way.
Every once in a while, they serve a similar function, like a Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack or something like that.
Yeah,
like one of those sort of like nostalgia trip
sure.
movies that where that's like part of it, and it's like, oh, what songs did they use in the thing?
Yeah.
But
I guess that's a really specific example, and that makes sense. But I guess it's more generally because like these are movies that like fucking who cares about Queen of the Damned? Who gives a shit about Bride of Chucky?
Right.
But the soundtracks are fantastic.
Right. Well, and it was also like a time whenever like you would have like, oh, this is a scene when Ben Affleck Daredevil puts on his hood and then Evanescence starts playing or whatever. Like that's what would happen in the movie, and that doesn't happen in superhero movies anymore. Well, it does once in a while.
There are bits and pieces. Yeah.
It does once in a while, but it's not.
It's never to a song like that. It's unless it's a Guardians movie. It's just to the rather forgettable Avengers score or whatever.
But even when it is something like that in the Guardians movie, it's to like a classic song, or like the scene in not Miss Marvel,
Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Just a Girl.
Yeah. That's like again, it's a throwback song.
It's not to introduce you to this.
Yeah.
music.
It's not to,
Yeah, it's the same with both of those movies because those are period pieces for all intents and purposes, right?
Sure.
Like
sure. So it doesn't function in the way that it was like, we're good. Like all these kids are going to the fucking mall. They're going to go see the Daredevil movie. We're going to make them hear this song. And then they're going to want to go to Hot Topic and buy this t-shirt of this band. It wasn't done in that. It's not done in that fucking way.
Sure. Yeah.
Not in a way that I understand or have any comprehension of.
I guess it never registered for me that that's how soundtracks were meant to function in movies back then. To me, it was just like, oh, here's current music that we're gonna put together because it vaguely fits this theme or whatever. Is how I always took it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, obviously, there's like the business side of things,
right?
Which you just don't think about if you're going to a movie and listening to the music,
right? Yeah, like there would have been like competition, like there would have been like, like people on Roadrunner would have been like, making the phone ring off the hook to get Il Nino on the Freddy versus Jason soundtrack or whatever,
Right.
Like,
I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about the soundtrack to it wasn't a soundtrack, it was a compilation that was done by Vagrant Records in the early 2000s, which they got a bunch of bands on their labels which were primarily like nu metal or like metalcore bands to do punk covers.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
And one of the dudes on the podcast was the singer from The Bled, and he was on there, so
Okay.
they had him talking about it and stuff like that. And he was describing how they got that slot on that album, and it was just, I mean, this was a case where the label was doing the whole thing themselves with their bands.
Right. Okay.
Right. But it was like, well, we would have done the Misfits cover or whatever it was, but some other band, fucking Black Parade band,
Chemical Romance.
Chemical Romance had already chosen that one.
Of course they did.
For that. So we got to do the Bad Brains cover, I think it was.
Okay.
And the way he described it, it was like, you can do one of these 3 Bad Brains songs. Like, it wasn't like, pick one that you like. If you like Bad Brains, it was just like, here are the 3 that we somehow have rights to do or something like that.
Yeah.
And you have like a day to do it. Here, you have like 6 hours to bang this out.
Yeah.
While you're in the middle of the Warped Tour. Like, find a day where you can make it happen, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
you've got an off day in fucking Wisconsin.
Exactly.
Find a studio in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Book space at this hole-in-the-wall place and record this song that you don't really want to deal with.
That's not even your first choice.
Exactly, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So weird stuff like that. I'm sure that was like the norm.
That's definitely going to be...
rather than the exception.
Well, and that's another reason another aspect of this why people that people don't consider is that why there would be so many put a new song on a soundtrack, put a this, you know what I mean, or like commissions and whatnot and stuff, and another reason why it's like, oh, let's get all this like niche nu metal and stuff is that it would cost a fuck ton of money to put like fucking Metallica in a movie. To put, to do all that. Now that
I bet that Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack cost a lot of money to make.
Exactly. Well, and like as of late, like Metallica, like the past like 10 years or so, like Metallica, like kind of like loosened the reins on their placement,
Yes,
and stuff like that. But for a while, that you'd never hear Metallica like in a movie and shit like that.
No, and that song, that was the reason for the whole Napster thing. That song, apparently, I didn't realize that until recently.
One of the things that I think, and I think specifically one of the aspects of it was that it was like an early version of it got leaked.
Yeah, something like that.
And that, because that's a piece of it that's often missing in the narrative. And like, I don't know, maybe it's fucking bullshit or whatever, and maybe I'm wrong, but it wasn't just that they were, because people want to spin it as if it's like, oh, these guys are mad because people were downloading Master of Puppets and they weren't getting their money.
Yeah.
Right. But another important layer was that there were things of theirs that they had not released, that had been spread that they had no control over, no say in, that they could not get back.
Yeah.
Because somebody that was working at the studio they had recorded at like leaked it, shit like that. And like, I'm sure it was both. I'm sure there were some aspects of both, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, a piece that people don't talk about.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I just think it's funny that it was that song that sort of spurred things off, and then, because that song fucking sucks.
It ain't great. I don't think they play so many random songs live, and I don't know if they play that one.
I don't know that I've ever seen them play that. Yeah. Maybe it's somewhere,
But yeah, like that whole I mean, that's the whole like film placement, all that sort of stuff. Like, because I know people who work in composing, like film scoring and whatnot, and man, that shit is frustrating because someone will put in a temp track, and the temp track will be like U2's like Beautiful Day or some shit,
right?
And they're like, can you write something that like does this? And so you as a composer are stuck with to like, all right, not just what does this song do, right? But what is it about this song that is making the director Like, what part of this are they tracking as being essential?
Right. What is it about this track that made you pick it?
Yeah.
That it works for you with this scene so well, and because that's what you want me to do. That's what you want me to emulate.
Right.
And so that's I've seen that not argument, but like I've seen that pointed out a lot for why movie soundtracks sound so generic and samey, which is because they are by design. Because it's like, well, there's this really cool part in the trailer or in this section from, I don't know, The Dark Knight or whatever. So we're gonna put that as the temp track. So do something like that, and you do something basically like that, and then it just incestuous all the way down.
Right. Right.
So I'm sure it doesn't always happen that way, but like it makes a lot of sense because the whole temp track thing is a huge like kerfuffle as far as I know.
Well, and it also sort of becomes like a cultural language. Like we as an audience are accustomed to those motifs being cues for certain rhythms and beats in the story and whatnot.
Right.
So
this is what a surprising scene sounds like. This is what an action-packed scene sounds like.
Right.
Yo. Good catch.
So it
blew you out of your headphones.
Yeah. So it becomes a really efficient way to get that done.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you're going to do a novel soundtrack, when it works, it's amazing, but it could also totally ruin a movie, or it could just be too much to ask for an audience, for them to sort of, like adopt a different language, like a different,
to feel something different.
I guess like what I'm saying is like, okay, normally it's these notes, this group of notes, this type of progression, this type of tempo, this type of timbre of sounds that means something's about to happen, or means that the climax is happening, or means that something unexpected is about to happen, or whatever. And if you're like, you know what, instead of doing that, we're going to do something that sounds like the Eagles. And it's depending on the kind of movie, if your audience hasn't already completely bought in, you might not, they might not stay with you.
Maybe, yeah. I think the reason I've seen that pointed out so much is because of composers themselves being upset about it, where it's like that's what I meant by the whole temp track thing in the first place, which was like if the director comes along in an early stage of the movie where there isn't anything to write against for the composer, to take inspiration from and write something for, and they just say, I want a part that sounds like this, then you're like stuck with that, and you're instantly pigeonholed into being not creative anymore.
For sure.
And so I can see how that would be like hugely deflating.
Yeah, but that's what that job is, though. Like
I guess that is what that job is to some extent, but it's like if you can't, I could see it going both ways. If you don't even get a say in what the idea of what you want it to sound like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's going to vary from project to project, but those are definitely like some worst case scenario projects that are just going to be the nature of.
Because it could be that the director just has an idea for what they want.
Yeah.
Temp track or no.
And this is another thing too. So, like, you might not get it. Like it might be your job to supply the music. Right. But you might not get what the director's going for.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
I've had that happen on sessions and whatnot where it's gone multiple ways. But there's this one dude that I've done. His name's Brad Rushing. He cinematographer, does a lot of shit. Look up his IMDb. There's a lot of shit on there. He has some new stuff on that. There's a new movie, I think a movie that just came out on Netflix, and there's another one coming out on HBO soon that he did cinematography for this past year. Anyway, but he does a lot of music on the side. I've done a lot of drum tracks for him. And there've been like times where it's like, okay, he's like, well, like I hear the track, I'm like, man, I love this track. This is a great track. This is, and like in my mind, like I see it. I see the complete beautifully orchestrated, perfect arc of a drum part. And that's not what he wants at all. He's like, can you do like kind of like some swish brushes stuff? And he's amazing to work with because he does trust you, but he also does have a clear vision of what he wants. Right. Like he's the perfect scenario because he knows what he wants in a very, abstract's not the quite the right word, but he knows how he wants to feel.
Yeah.
And so he's not gonna like fuck with you on the details.
Yeah, like he knows the feeling he wants to get across, but he won't nitpick how you get there.
Exactly. And if you're doing something that's not making that feeling happen, then he's going to throw out ideas and he's going to like, oh, try this, maybe this, maybe this, maybe this, maybe this. Mm-hmm. But he's going to trust you to solve those problems. Right.
Right.
And so it's one of this best case scenario. Right. Cool. But there have been instances where it's like, I'm like, yes, I know exactly what this track needs. Let me do what I'm thinking. And I do like a pass of it. And he's like, yeah, maybe some brushes, maybe some this. And then when I let go of like my expectation and my attachment to like my idea or whatever, and then I like hear it, sometimes not even while I'm playing the track, like while I'm listening back.
Yeah.
And then it'll be like, oh, I get what you're going for now. I see.
Cool.
And so that's like, it's a tricky dynamic because you're an artist too.
Right. But like that's not the job.
But yeah,
right.
But the job isn't really to do your art. The job is to kind of, support their whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's like to bring their vision to fruition.
Yeah. And he does like kind of like singer-songwriter folk kind of stuff. So he doesn't need intricate, crazy, whatever drumming or whatever. Like he needs feel, texture, and pocket from me.
Yeah.
And like musical reactivity, but I've done other sessions and things where someone doesn't know what they want. They just know that I'm not doing it. And maybe they know a little bit about drums. And so they really will fixate on like the one thing they heard me do that they could understand. And they're like, hey, you're opening the hi-hat on the and of 2. Can you try opening it on the and of 4? Every other measure? Like stuff like that.
I've been that guy for sure.
With me?
Probably.
No.
Because that's how I tend to think about those sorts of things. And that's how I would communicate it as well. It's like, I don't know exactly what it is I don't like about what this is doing, but here's an example.
It's different whenever you're like, it's different when you're in a band.
Oh, sure. And it's not like a transactional relationship.
Right. Yeah. Because there's like a certain, and it's different when you're in a band and it's like, all right, well, we're working together to try to figure out how to make this thing sound like us and sound unique and sound this. And
that's
sound
the difference.
That.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely done that the other way where I'm like, try that fret. No.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
No, that one. Try that one. Okay. Play the riff. I'm going to tell you which note I don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. Exactly.
And so it's like, it's not really that it's that there's like it's kind of frustrating because there's like a language gap, language barrier where, where someone doesn't have, because it's not their job. It's not their job to like, like you don't come in like when someone's like painting, like if someone's job is to paint and then tell them like what, it's like, oh, right there on that spot, you use the wrong grade of paintbrush. Right. And I need you to redo these this. I don't think you taped that well enough when you did this with the fine brush, No. Like you're like, I don't like this. And they have to figure out what you don't like about it. And that's just kind of the nature of it. That's just kind of part of what it is, and it's frustrating and it's really stressful.
Yeah, totally.
On all ends, but I can imagine like that composing aspect of it being you know, it gets a similar. I'm imagining it's a similar thing because it's like, hey, put yourself into this, you know. And there is a difference. Brad is a musician, so there is enough of a common language where I am talking to a musician.
Yeah.
With songs he's written, and I'm playing a part in those songs. I imagine it's like even more difficult whenever like someone doesn't even understand music; they just understand feelings of sound attached to images.
Yeah, in a weird way, it's like it's exactly what we heard the dudes from Airship talk about in the fucking Synthwave documentary.
Gunship,
Airship, Gunship, where they were like, we don't even use musical terms in the studio. We just say, turn up the Aliens, or turn up the Terminator, or turn up the Goonies, or whatever. Give it some more Goonies.
Give it a little more Blade Runner.
Give it some more Blade Runner, yeah. Which that's all that is, but it just so happens to... There's a weird intersection that works there.
Yeah, man, I have probably listened to their self-titled album like 100 times since we did the Synthwave episode.
Fuck yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I got it. That became my lane, like the synth pop. That's my synthwave lane. So
awesome.
Like yeah, them and the Midnight. Midnight put out a new record like a few weeks ago called Heroes, and it is the poppiest pop record that I have loved in like a long time. It is poppy as fuck. Like
is it instrumental or is it vocals?
No. But it's a really strange mix of like just condensed, boiled down elements of pop music, but mixed with like that like fever dream roulette of 80s, random 80s elements.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, well, here's a tone that sounds like the keyboard from Jump. Here's this little melody that sounds like this random 80s song, and here's a guitar tone that sounds like U2, and you're so it's like it feels very intentional to like create this feel that nostalgia feeling, but it's also done in a very artful way while still making just unapologetically modern pop music.
Interesting.
And using some of the motifs and whatnot of modern pop music and whatnot. So
yeah, that's cool though.
But yeah, I've listened to that a lot. You converted me, sir.
Getting there. You're still sticking with the vocal albums. I noticed.
Well, there's like there's a few different playlists that I'll listen to too that are instrumental, but like playlists that Gunship made. They're like their synth whatever list.
Hey, if you find a way in, then fucking whatever.
But yeah, those tend to be those few are my favorites right now.
Cool.
But yeah, like
the door is open.
It wide the fuck open. But yeah, like, you know, but yeah, that aspect of working in soundtracks and composing and whatnot, I bet is stressful. So like, have you seen like Forgetting Sarah Marshall or whatever?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's like one of the whole like subplots of it is that Jason Segel's character, like that's his job, is that he's like a composer for like a show or whatever. And anyway.
Okay. It's been a while. I don't remember.
So he's like, oh, well, you need it's like a crime show. And he's like, let me guess. You know, like, cause he's like fucking around doing stuff in the sound mix, you know, like, it's like, hey man, you know, just keep it regular, you know, just maybe something a little more dark and ominous, you know? And anyways, so, but yeah, one of my friends who does that kind of work is like, yeah, that's exactly how it is actually.
Spot on.
So,
man, ever since I made that playlist and we did that episode, I've been listening to that Carpenter Brut album, the trilogy, where he just put his 3 EPs together as an album.
Okay,
fucking so good.
Well, you were already deep into that dude, though, right?
I listened to a fair amount here and there, but I'd never like put on one of his albums a lot. But that has become the album that I just keep going back to and back to. Nice, man, it's good.
I keep wanting to watch that documentary again.
Yeah, I kind of do too. Actually, it was
so good.
It was. I mean, just a bunch of interesting dudes talking about the stuff they make.
Yeah.
And then John Carpenter over top of it all.
Just being amazing.
Being John Carpenter, yeah.
Yeah, I looked for, I tried to find, because they had done like a DVD release of it, like as to like a Kickstarter or some shit like that, and I kept trying to find like copies of the fucking DVD.
Not easy to find.
Nope. Like, see if I could find like there's some special features on this shit or some shit like that. It's like I need the uncut interviews. I'm like, that's what I want.
That's what I want is the Lord of the Rings extended edition.
Yeah.
Basically.
Like I want to see every minute of footage that you shot with the gunship guys. Because everything that those dudes said felt like so fucking insightful, and goddamn interesting. I want the whole thing.
And then show me everything that you shot with Stallone 84 or whatever it is. Where he's just like an old cranky British guy just talking about how he doesn't fucking understand electronics and technology.
How you get a song on iTunes? I don't fucking know.
Dude. Oh man, it's a great juxtaposition to like all the kids in that documentary.
He's the only Gen Z that makes synthwave. He's the only guy out. Or Gen X. He's the only guy out of Generation X that makes fucking synthwave.
He just like happened upon it in the weirdest, most natural way possible. Like he just had the right equipment laying around. He was like, I don't know, just fucking made a song. What do you want? I don't care.
Yeah.
It's very much like just not giving a fuck attitude and just like leave me alone. I don't want people to talk to me. Like, man, this dude rules.
I was talking about that dude. I brought it up. I forgot what context, but it was because he was like, I was talking to Justin about it. And but like hey man, this doesn't even sound like you, and he's like, well, I fucking made it.
Right.
What do you want me,
like posting new tracks to his Facebook page, I think it was, and people were leaving those comments. This doesn't even sound like Stallone 84. Was it Stallone 84?
That doesn't sound right.
80 Stallone. There we go.
Okay.
That's what it was. 80 Stallone. This doesn't even sound like an 80 Stallone track. I was like, I fucking made it. It is. What do you want?
Yeah, man.
Just
that's great.
But yeah, excellent shit.
So,
I keep meaning to go back and ask when you brought up Rita earlier and evacuating for Rita.
Oh fuck.
Yeah.
Oh man, do we want to talk about that?
I don't know, but that brought up a really funny memory that I have of when we did that. Did y'all evacuate or did y'all stay here?
Oh, I evacuated. Yeah.
You made it up.
Me and my mom evacuated up to Palestine.
Okay, right. Okay, so
and then I was there for like 2 weeks, or like 10 days or something, and then I went to Nacogdoches with Jet for like 10 days,
right,
or something, or 2 weeks or something, and then I went out to Katy with Mark for like another week.
Oh wow.
And then I finally went back home to Beaumont because Beaumont was closed for like a month.
Yes, right.
So,
yeah, because that was where it hit primarily.
Yeah.
But the memory that brought to mind was because I was still living in Dayton.
Okay.
With my mom at the time, and we didn't leave early. Like we waited till way fucking too late to leave. And so I just remember when we eventually tried to, we were going to go to San Antonio to stay with her mom.
Okay.
And so we started taking, leave Dayton, take 90. Mm-hmm. Oh shit, I'm trying to think now. Oh no, I know what it was. I know how we got there. We were going to go to Liberty first because we were going to go to I think Jasper. Because that's where my grandparents lived.
Okay.
Maybe we were gonna go up there, which was a bad idea because they got it way worse than we did it.
But but at the time, it seemed like it was going to hit Houston.
Yes, exactly.
And it was going to hit that area, and then sort of at the last second, it
just didn't.
It hung a hard right.
Yeah.
And destroyed Beaumont and Port Arthur.
Yes, exactly. So we were going to go that way, and then leaving Dayton, that's what it was. Leaving Dayton, you go to Liberty on 90, and there's the two ways, and you get to the Trinity River Bridge there, and there's two different ways across it. And when we tried to go that way, traffic was like so fucking terrible.
Yeah.
That it was like a 6-mile trek between the towns.
Right.
And I think it took us like an hour and a half to get just to Liberty.
Yeah.
And then we got that far, and we were like, we don't have a lot of gas. There's no gas to get.
Yeah.
It was like a 2-hour drive ahead of us. if traffic is anything like this, which it seems like it's going to be because people are filtering that way, there's no way we're going to do this. So I'll never forget like the imagery of the eastbound 90 being just packed as far as you can see, and then us just making a turnaround on Trinity River Bridge, like, and there were cops like, don't go that way, don't fucking go that way, telling us not to turn around, but we just like turned around into the opposite way, and like we were the only ones going that way. It was a completely empty road.
How wild.
And we just drove back home, and and that was that, and it wasn't that bad, turns out, but it was just such a wild memory, and that was what I think that event was what caused them to implement contraflow lanes everywhere, like they did on like 321 and wherever else they did, because that was not common at the time.
Yeah, I haven't thought about the actual evacuation in a long time, but yeah, I remember filling up my gas tank in Beaumont. And I remember talking to my mom and sort of like, what are we going to do? You know, should we? And then like decide like we should probably leave. And so I went to her house. And then we left from there and we took both vehicles. Because it seemed like we weren't going to have anything to come back to, was the feeling. And, you know, and like I had that recorder, and I had like my drum set, and I had like a box of books that would have been a pain in the ass to replace, and I put all my clothes in my drums to save space, because I had that small Monte Carlo at the time. You know, I didn't have a lot of room, and so, you know, anyway. But I remember like. We started getting real scared when it was time to leave, and I remember like giving my mom like some crazy pep talk about it. Like,
I think I did the exact same thing.
Yeah, of like, I mean, God, it seems like real ignorant and stupid at the time, but I was, you know, man, I was like fucking 22, you know what I mean?
Right.
I was like panicking. I was like, other people haven't been through what you and I have been through. Panicking is for other people. That's not what we do. You know, like some shit like that, you know. Because it was scary because, you know, we lost there's like cell phone signal was gone after a certain point, and so she and I left at the same time, and then there's sort of like a, you know, because for us,
I mean, cell phones weren't a huge thing at that point in the first place.
They were really pervasive by like everyone had one. Okay.
2005. I don't think that's.
It felt like most people had one because I remember like just cascades and cascades of text messages of people checking to see, and if you could text on them, then they were pretty pervasive at that point.
I guess as someone who didn't really have one, how the fuck would I know?
Fair enough.
Never mind.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so because we went to Palestine, and so we have to go 59.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that stretch of 59 was crazy.
Right. Right.
You know, once we got off 59 in like Corrigan or whatever, you know, and then it was straight shot or whatever. But that stretch of 59 was great. It was something ridiculous. I can't even remember. Like, you know, like 6-8 hours to go 60 miles or something.
Yeah,
maybe.
Sounds right.
Something I can't even remember. It's 20 years ago. Something absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fucking wild.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember that we had played the Metal Fest a few weeks prior to that, the one that we have footage of. Really good footage of, because there were a bunch of fucking New Orleans evacuees there, because they were.
Because that was after Katrina.
Yeah. That's fucking crazy to think about that those two happened in the same fucking year.
Yeah, because Katrina happening and everybody evacuating and staying here,
right?
To greater extent than you would have expected.
And that was partially why Houston, why I think that panic doesn't feel like quite the right word, but why that like sense of like, all right, let's all fucking go.
Yeah, I don't know.
Was because we had seen what happened to, to New Orleans.
Yes.
Yeah. So it felt,
it felt like it could really happen.
Yeah.
And if they said something, I mean, because the way that they were forecasting it was like, this is going to be another one of those.
Right. And I mean, like fucking Houston and New Orleans are like in a lot of ways like fucking brother sister cities. Shit like that. I was in New Orleans once.
Swamp cities.
Yeah. Like I was in New Orleans once, and like some dude was doing some crowd work. He's like, "Oh, where are you from?" I was like, "I'm from Houston." He's like, "Oh man, it's motherfucking New Orleans West." Some shit like that,
To some extent, yep.
But yeah, so yeah, that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I don't think panic was quite the right word there, but like urgency and like this one's for real. Like,
yeah,
let's take this seriously.
Right.
And what that ended up looking like for everyone taking it seriously, given the infrastructure that we had in place and the processes that we had in place at the time, was
get the fuck
8-hour traffic for driving an hour away.
Yeah,
and that's what that ended up looking like.
Well, and I think also something.
That's why they made so many changes.
Yeah,
that. Or not so many, but they made changes. After that.
Also, probably something that's important to consider in that like equation is our parents, and that our parents had like lived through like Alicia and whatnot. And so like they had seen a hurricane kick the shit out of Houston.
Yeah.
Like that was in their fucking memory, so that was probably like a factor too. Like it seemed possible,
Yeah.
But instead just kick the shit out of Beaumont.
It did.
It took areas out. There are areas out there that never recovered.
Yeah. Yeah. Unsurprisingly, I know so where we were going to go in the first place which was Jasper, out like about 10 miles outside of Jasper, where my grandparents lived, on the middle of nowhere, just on a dirt road off of a farm road, and they didn't have power for like a month and a half.
Wow!
Like shit was absolutely wrecked all the way up there.
I remember showing back up to my apartment in Beaumont, and like all the bricks on the outside were gone. There was like nothing between, like it was just sheetrock and fucking wood. Like that was all that was between, It was fucking wild. It was wild.
Yeah.
Lots of mold.
I bet.
That we had to clean up.
I bet. Yeah.
But yeah, they had to do a bunch of wacky shit at the college for us to still get our credits and stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Still get your hours in and stuff. Yeah, it was wacky. God, it was a weird time. Fucking weird. But that was when me and Jay got really close, though, because I went and stayed with him in Nacogdoches for like 2 weeks.
Right.
So there's a lot of funny stories in there. Some of which we have differing memories on. Like I remember one way, he remembers it another way.
Mm-hmm.
Specific one is going to church, because I have this memory. This is not how he remembers it.
Mm-hmm.
Of like him coming downstairs and saying like it was like 8:00 or something on like Sunday, and he was something like, service starts at 9:30. Well, we'll start walking over at 9. And he said it in a way that did not feel like an option at all.
Right. It was like a father saying it.
Yeah. It was like, it felt like you stay in my house, you go to church.
Right.
It felt that way, and I was like, well, I ain't gonna fucking rock the boat, because I just spent 2 weeks with my family, and I'm not ready to go back there yet. I can handle a shitty hour of church in Nacogdoches, of Catholic church in Nacogdoches, But again, like, maybe I was just used to people saying shit like that, and he was just like letting me know what time shit was. That's not how it felt to me at the time. That's not how it tracked to me at the time. It tracked to me like it was not an option. So I fucking put on my fucking clothes and get dressed, and we all walk over there, and I watch some weird fucking student Catholic fucking service, because he was Catholic.
Well, I was Catholic, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it was in Nacogdoches, so it was.
Oh, okay.
at college town, SFA, man. So like I remember just seeing like some fucking like some I say kids like they were our age, like doing music or whatever or something like that. I have a very vague recollection of it.
Okay. This is a student service. I don't really know what that entails, I guess.
No, it wasn't a student service. It was a regular service, but they were.
It was just largely done by college students because there were so many of them.
Something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But it was like, it had that vibe. I don't know if you've ever been to like a church thing on campus or whatever, but it had a little bit of that vibe to it.
Okay. I see what you mean.
But like in like a Catholic way. So
like an incredibly boring way.
Yeah. In an unfun way.
Yeah. Like no one wants to be there.
God damn it, man, dude. Oh God, I hate mainstream church music so much. I hate it so much. I did a church gig this morning. I'm doing like this like low key percussion thing, so it feels a little different. But this but the like they had like song references in the song. This I've had these flashbacks to when I used to do this for like years at a time, and I would have to like learn these songs. I have to transcribe these songs. I have to learn note for note, more or less.
Right.
Not note for note, but like measure for fucking measure, per se. Like I need to know exactly how long each section is on that recording. I need to know how the drummer played it on that recording because it's going to throw off the fucking guitarist if I don't play it exactly the way that drummer plays it. And he knows enough about drums to know, like, to where those details will legitimately fuck up his ability to execute the music, because he knows the difference between, you know, da ba ga gung ga gung ba da gung ba da da gung ga. You know, he knows the difference between that and gung ba da gung ba ga ga doom ba gung doom da ga. Like you know what I mean? Because he can play drums just good enough to execute that music. Anyway, but they would send me the like videos sometimes, like YouTube. Makes sense, right? You send YouTube. What a great way to share music.
Yeah.
And I would have to like scroll up so that I didn't have to like watch these people fucking play this goddamn music, because it would be upsetting for me. Why isn't that charging?
It's pretty snug.
Okay. All right.
Is that one charging?
Yeah, that was fine. This is why I had so many batteries.
That may be the case, because if the battery isn't healthy, then it will charge for a time when it's plugged in, but it won't hold. I mean, if that is the case, then the answer might just be as simple as getting new batteries. Oh, these are like third.
It's not something with like this edition of the camera, like it's a old, like, you know, like it's one generation older, so like you can't charge it while using it. I hope it's not some shit like that, because that renders these unusable to me. Or not unusable, but impractical for me.
I mean, for what it's worth, this looks like a third-party battery.
Okay.
Probably. Which means it's probably not very reliable.
Yeah, because it's when I plug this in, it ain't doing dick. No, there is a simpler answer to this, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
You already know what the answer to this is.
Do I?
There we go.
Whoa, wait,
This
what?
wasn't plugged in.
Where the fuck? Oh, to the wall?
Yeah,
Oh my fucking god.
because I had to unplug it to do something else. But yeah. But like I looked over here at this one and I was like, well, cause this one's
That's why I was like, is that one charging?
Oh no, it's fucking not.
Because if that one's charging,
It was not. Oh, it's always the simplest. Always the simplest solution.
oh man. I almost thought about checking. I was like, oh man, that one's fine. That one's fine.
Always check it. All right.
Fucking battery's probably bullshit. It's probably cheap bullshit.
Yeah. No, Richard just didn't plug shit in. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
It's all right though.
I don't know if it's better or worse than plugging in your USB and finding it's the wrong way and turning it upside down, and that also doesn't work. So you go the first time again and it fucking works miraculously.
Yeah, like Schrodinger's USB.
Yes. Both ways at once.
So this church discussion actually kind of relates to something that I was gonna bring up, because topic for today is, guess what? We don't fucking have one.
Grab bag. Potpourri, as it were.
Yeah, we had a topic planned.
We had multiple topics planned, but none of them were able to pan out.
But yeah, someone had to cancel the last minute, and so we weren't able to.
Someone.
We weren't able to see. Someone had to cancel at the last minute.
It won't be at all obvious based on who is on next as a guest.
Within the next handful of episodes. But yeah, so, and then we were gonna try to like, okay, well maybe we can like, wing doing a Baroness follow up, the next part, and I tried, and I was like, man, it's not safe to listen to this, to try to absorb this much Baroness.
Yeah.
In this short a period of time.
Yeah.
I tried.
It's fair. It's a
tried.
valiant effort.
And I was like, so yeah, so we were like, all right, well, we're just gonna fucking get together and shoot shit, see what happens. So yep. So here we are. That's what happened. Okay, so speaking of that church shit, right?
Right.
This was something that I thought would be fun to kind of riff on and talk about. Did you catch any of this like drama? Drama's too strong of a word. This stuff with the band Falling in Reverse having to cancel a festival appearance because they lost their laptops.
Okay.
That had like all their backing tracks and all their stuff on there, so they like had to cancel a performance because their laptop and their backup laptop got shipped to another state on accident or some shit like that.
Bro, Google Drive is free. You can back your shit up.
That's a thought that I had too.
I mean, if you're saying they have a laptop and then a backup laptop, they understand the concept of backup. They just didn't do it the right way.
Right.
Because the whole point is if you don't have your physical thing, you can always get it no matter what you're using.
Right. And I mean, but you still need like programs to run it, and you still need, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
You need, and all that.
Yeah.
Your Ableton Live or whatever the fuck you're doing it through. And you still...
I don't know, music player probably? Does it need to be in the DAW?
It does.
Does it?
It does when you're doing that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And so like regardless of
precautions they may or may not have taken.
Right. That was like the reasoning they gave.
This is how things ended up.
Yeah, and they were like, all right, well, we can't do the show because we've, da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Was it just one show or was it like a whole...
It was just one.
Okay.
It was just one. And
I don't know who this band is, by the way.
I was listening to some of their stuff earlier. They're doing really, really well right now.
Are they local or?
No. This is a huge band.
What are they called again?
Falling in Reverse.
Falling in Reverse.
Like 207 million plays on their top song on Spotify here.
What the fuck?
But yeah. So like I was listening to them earlier. I was like, how do I describe this? And I was like,
sounds like the Butthole Surfers so far.
and I was like, it's like, this is what I thought at the time, and I was like, it's pop music if your parents listen to Fall Out Boy. Anyway, but then you get to it's
Okay.
it's like heavy quote unquote pop music, and and then there'll be like a genty riff that shows up. There'll be like a screamy thing, lots of synthy backing tracks and stuff like that, and whatever.
Okay.
It's fine music. I'm not shitting on them. I have nothing negative to say about the music. It's fine. It's fine. But yeah, so needless to say, a bunch of fucking boomer ass motherfuckers come out of the fucking woodwork to talk shit on these guys because they
Like, oh, you didn't have your backing tracks, you can't play a show. That sort of thing?
Yeah. So
Okay.
like Sebastian Bach, I think, and like Eddie Trunk and all these, and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, Sebastian Bach. People who need to say something about something these days. Doesn't fucking matter anymore.
But yeah, I thought it was oh no, do you have any strong opinions about this idea of like bands playing with laptops, with backing tracks, blah blah blah? Have you seen an instance of it where it bothered you? Have you seen instances of it where it didn't bother you?
No, it's just become such a normal thing. I think, like, if that's part of how your live setup is, then that's just how it is these days. Because that can be such an integral thing that you do now.
Right.
If you're the type of band who can get up with just instruments and amps and do your thing, but maybe on the album there's more to it or something like that, then cool. If not, yeah, I don't think that bothers me at all. Like,
Yeah.
That's just such an ubiquitous way to do things.
It doesn't really bother me either. I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
Like.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I'd have to listen to them more and really understand, because that does seem like a weird thing to cancel a show over, though. I feel like you could do something.
Yeah.
Unless you're really just not doing anything live. Or apart from vocals, maybe. So,
And so
I don't know.
so this is how it relates, is I've done church gigs where we are slaved to the laptop.
Sure.
Okay. And I've done those. I've done the whole scale of those to where, all right, because I started playing church music in like 2005, and I did it pretty consistently for, I guess, like 10 almost 14 years or something like that.
Damn.
Pretty consistently, not like every Sunday for that whole time period, but there would be like
Pretty regularly.
okay, for this 2 years every Sunday,
Okay.
you know what I mean? And then for this 4 years twice a month, for this, you know what I mean? And then for this other 2 years every Sunday, there would be, anyway.
Yeah.
And so I've done it. I did all the permutations of like, all right, we're just going to show up here this morning and we're going to learn the songs before the service. Here we go. Because there wasn't an efficient way for me to get the songs to you before you got here.
Right.
So we're just going to learn them the morning of.
Right. Which I assume that has changed over time.
Oh yeah.
So.
And then we're going to play these songs to a click track. And so you have the Boss whatever metronome, the Tama rhythm watch or whatever here over the side that has like the 1/4 inch outs and all that sort of shit. And you're responsible for changing the click track in between songs. but it's like a fucking just a giant metronome that I'm like, or you know what I mean, or like the band gets off, so you like you stop it and restart it, or stuff like that, or whatever, or whatever, or like this has a tempo change, so dial it down in this.
Oh, like manually do that?
Yeah. Like during a breakdown, you know, blah 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 blah. So where I'm like just responsible for working the metronome. Okay.
Was it like a jog wheel like that?
Yeah, like a data wheel on there and stuff like that. But usually it'd be like, you know, you set it like fucking 75, and this is, you know, so but at first, man, that was really nuts. That was hard to like play with the click track live, right? You know.
Yeah, I imagine so.
That was a weird skill set to get used to. And then the next iteration, which was the hardest, was when you were playing to a backing track that had like extra synth. Like, okay, well, it has like the keyboard part in the chorus, and it has like a tambourine part that comes in the chorus or whatever. But it's not coming from like a computer. It's just like a track. Like
somebody recorded this.
Yeah, like so you're just hitting play, and then you wait, and then it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, start, right? And that's really challenging because once that starts, you have to account for every single beat, and you have to keep the whole band exactly in the right spot, because if someone fucks up and you adjust, and in that process of adjusting, you drop a beat, like now the harmonies on the keys are going to be off in the chorus. It's going to be displaced.
Right.
Or whatever. And so that was like the most intense, oh shit, this one shot to get this right kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
No net.
That's wild. So you're saying there was percussion on those tracks sometimes? That seems fucking crazy, because if they're playing in a feel that isn't the feel you're playing in,
it would just be like a tambourine.
I guess even so,
you know.
Yeah.
It was well, and it was funny though, because it's like, and again, this is at the time. All right, this is, you know, 2000. I don't know, late 2000s.
Late 2000s.
All right, so this is before everyone had a MacBook with Ableton on it and shit like that. And before you know, like YouTube was super pervasive, and like the knowledge of how to do praise and worship services had really disseminated, you know.
I thought you were going to say the knowledge of like how to do like backing tracks correctly. No. The knowledge of how to do praise and worship services.
Well,
disseminated.
I mean, yes, it's the same thing. But like I remember like I just played it on the hi-hat, right? I'm like, okay, like, so fucking what, you know? Mm-hmm. And I remember someone being like, wow, that's crazy that you can do that. I'm like, you guys don't even fucking know. You have no concept of the bullshit that I do in the music that I play outside of here.
Yeah.
Like, you just want 16ths at 140 for forever? No problem, kiddo. But then, and so that was like a weird, like, stumbling block to get to where the tracks were on Ableton.
Right.
And then at first that was just like, okay, yeah, you just play the track. I push 1 and the first song of the set goes, because the drummers I always have the laptop for whatever reason, you know. Push 2 for the second song, push 3 for the whatever, but it's still just going. But then it had cues, you know. Then it had like verse 2, 3, 4, like cueing, like you didn't even need to know the arrangement anymore. You know, like you know, it was just it would tell you when things. It would just tell you when things were gonna fucking happen.
So you just had to know the parts, and then it would tell you when to play them.
Right. Oh, that's when I go to those chords, you know, or whatever.
Or yeah, I guess you didn't have to know the parts. You could have them laid out in front of you.
Know when to go to the next one.
Yeah.
Right. Hold 2, 3. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that.
Ugh, weird.
Well, because a big like way that, because the art form of modern praise and worship music is so rigidly defined, the way that people like express creativity in there is like, oh well, we're just gonna hold this extra measures.
This is when we mean it.
Yeah. G, 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 G,
Yeah.
G, G. And it just makes it a pain in the dick to transcribe the stuff, to make your map. Anyway, this is where it gets relevant. But then the last time that I did that was like in, I don't know, 2017 or whatever. I was doing it out in this church at Katy for a while. I played with him for a while. But that was wacky because, yeah, you had the guides, like the coaching, right? But also those backing tracks weren't just like a stagnant track. Like you could control like the faders on what was happening on those backing tracks. So you have like your synth parts, you have your percussion track, you have the bass. And so there would be times when it was like, oh, our bass player isn't really strong this morning. We're going to turn him down and we're going to turn these bass tracks up. And this is for a church service where we're playing like for like 150 people. You know what I mean? Like, this is fucking chump change.
Not really life or death.
No, it's not.
Situation there.
It's not. And like
where if your bass player isn't on one morning, like,
so what, man? But it was so interesting to see them invest so much in like the technology to get this done, and have to spend so much time every morning sound checking and trying to get it to work right. When it's like, man, you could just like pay a bassist like $100.
Yeah.
know?
I mean, also that doesn't seem like something that would be all that crazy difficult to pull off every time.
You'd be surprised. You would be surprised.
Like based on the people involved.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know where the source of those errors are, but I know that they would.
They do occur.
Yeah, and I know that they would often. I would often hear shit like coming, like, "Oh, the enemy's at work this morning." I'm like, man, that ain't what's happening.
What? Okay.
No, man, dude, there was one time that like I'm in the middle of playing, and like, so that's the thing is like this stuff. It's very robust. Right? Like and I get why people are attracted to it because it allows for you to have very consistent services.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? Your product is very consistent.
Right.
But when it goes wrong, it goes really, really wrong. And I remember like I'm playing and all of a sudden I can't hear anything. Like everything's gone.
Like someone didn't plug in the fucking laptop.
Like something fucking happened. And I ran from the stage all the way back to the sound booth, and I'm yelling, like, you know what I mean? And then like I run back, and like I was having to like look because on Ableton there's like a little blink that gives you the tempo, and I'm using that as like my metronome, like blink, 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 blink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, like so all of that. So just to like give like context on like this is like if it's happening for like a piddly ass church in a box, we go and set up at a fucking middle school before we do the service in Katy, Texas. Like it's gonna be standard practice for a lot of types of music.
Yeah.
And a lot of pop music and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
And it can vary in so many ways from like that of like, oh, our bass player sucks, turn him down, turn up the pre-recorded bass tracks, to like, oh, this is cheaper than us hiring a keyboard player because we don't have a keyboard player on. We don't have keys on every song. We don't have synth on every song, but it's really important on the songs we do have it on. We have to have it.
Yeah.
And instead of hiring another person to do just that, we just have this laptop.
Yeah.
I
guess that's what I was getting at earlier, where it's like it doesn't seem like it's that difficult of a thing in terms of like once you have the track, you have the track. It's not a big deal to like maintain it or anything. If that's the way you're gonna go, if you have a live bass player and they can't make it one day, no big deal. You have your bass. It's there.
Yeah.
But if the problem is like infrastructural, I guess, then that's a whole other story. But
yeah.
Did you ever have a situation where someone was remote
No.
playing?
No.
I would be so interested to see how that would work.
Um,
Because when I don't know if you remember, like when everyone was like full quarantine mode.
oh yeah.
For the pandemic, in it's like March,
Sure.
through like May or whatever it was. When
Yeah.
everyone was in on it, and it became like a novel, fun thing, quote unquote, huge quotes, a fun thing, to like for a band to be in their own respective houses and dial into like a call and play a
Right.
song together. I've never seen how that actually comes together and works. Like,
Right.
do they all have their own metronome hits that are hitting at the same time, or
They
are they?
have to.
They have to, right? Are they all recording these separate and then editing them later, or
That's the thing that happened too.
are they doing? I have to imagine it all happened.
Yeah, you'd all like they would if you were gonna try to have them playing live in some way.
That would be insanity.
There has to be some type of they all have to be looking at something that's agreed upon in
Yeah.
some way, and you have to have that set, and then the processing has to like, okay, well that's like the MIDI clock, or that's the whatever clock. We're gonna use that as the global clock, and so this audio video feed will be synced to this,
Right.
And this will be synced to that. This is synced, you know what I mean?
But,
like
like,
it'd have to be done in some way like
But
that.
even then, there's no guarantee,
Sure.
right? Because everyone's internet is
Yeah.
giving you different feedback somehow or another. So that would be absolute insanity. But I'm sure it happened at some
Someone
point.
tried it. Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah.
but I've seen some of those that turned out like really, really well. So I have to assume that they just did it themselves. And
I know a lot of people did that shit.
yeah, yeah.
And so
But that's what that makes me think of. So yeah, I was wondering if that would ever happen in a live setting like that, because I could see how it would. But if you already had it recorded, then you could just fade it up, then whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so I've seen a lot of so let me be clear about this. I don't think that there is anything like wrong with playing with laptops and stuff like that, but I've seen like a lot of metal bands do it. And play with click tracks live and all that sort of stuff. And I will say that I often don't enjoy the bands that do that as much as I enjoy the bands that don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that there is like something wrong, right? Just to be clear, you know.
To me, it seems like a natural evolution of having a guitar tech do your effects for you.
Right.
'Cause
Sure.
That always fucking blew my mind. Back even like back in the 90s, that would happen. Or
Okay.
like Dime would be on stage and it would come time for his solo and he would need like the whammy pedal or the reverb to kick in or the whatever to kick in.
Yeah.
The chorus. And he's not doing anything. He's just standing there playing the thing. Meanwhile, Grady is backstage doing his shit for him, right?
I've never thought about
because
this.
it's all racked up. And that happens for vocals too. It's not just guitar.
Sure,
I assume it
yeah.
happens on some level for drums, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, like if that's a thing that you can offload to somebody else, if you have someone who can do that,
Right.
and make it happen every single time, because that way, if you're fucking rocking out, you don't have to get over to your pedal setup.
Sure.
And some bands just don't do that, but a lot of bands do and did.
Right.
And that always weirded me out. I was like, man, you're kind of like not doing it. Really, are you even really doing it anymore?
Yeah.
To me, that seems like a natural evolution of that sort of thing.
Right.
There's some level of automation going on.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
And also, like, when you have a certain kind of show, if you have, I guess that's another aspect of it too. Is like, well, what kind of show are you doing? You know, because if you're doing like a show where the lighting cues need to be synced up with the music, then you know,
it becomes worth it to you to have that happen.
Right. And but I mean, but that's really just talking about justifying playing like with a click track and shit like that, right? And so the times that like I've seen it where it kind of like, so it never bothers me if I see a metal band playing and I see like two guitars and I see a bass and I see a drummer and I see a vocalist and I hear like keyboard tracks. When you get to a chorus or like in an interlude or some shit like that or whatever. That never bothers me.
Yeah, me neither.
But I saw Rings of Saturn play once and it was just the guitarist and the drummer and a vocalist.
Uh-huh.
And And so you're hearing other guitar tracks, you're hearing bass, you know,
Yeah.
and hold on, I might be mixing things up. So I saw Rings. It was a Summer Slaughter tour, and I saw Rings of Saturn and the Faceless, and they were on the same bill. And I might be mixing up, or they both might have performed as a trio. I don't know, but like, that's whenever I can't tell what the person on stage is playing. And like what's being played by the tracks and what they're playing. Like, are you playing that lead, or is that lead coming from there, or are you playing the rhythm and the like? Whenever it gets there, that's whenever I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. In a metal context, I can't speak to it in a pop context. I don't know.
Sure, because I think like you said, like it's all about what kind of show you're trying to put on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's like I've often thought about whether or not I'd want to, if I were given the opportunity, would I want to go see like a Daft Punk show or a Justice show?
Okay.
Groups that don't play anything live to some extent. Everything is digital. It's in their sound banks. They're doing live mixing. It's not like they're standing there doing nothing.
Sure.
They don't just put on a record and let it go. But there's comparatively little like physical musicianship insofar as that can happen with digital music, you know?
Right.
So like on one level I'm like, I love this music, but would I want to bother to go to a live show for it? Because what am I really getting out of that?
Sure.
Whereas if you see, you know, a metal band typically, you know, play live for us, like what are you getting out of that? You're seeing them interpret their music on their instruments live,
right,
physically, and it becomes its own thing that's, you know, interesting and powerful to see.
Right.
And if you take that away, like what is it that you're really getting out of that show?
I wonder if part of that is our sort of bullshit of being musicians first.
I'm sure it is to some extent,
You know.
because take a pop show, for example. Like, what are you getting out of that? You're getting like the spectacle and
Right.
There's a whole other aspect to it that you don't really have to deal with.
Right, and it's the aspect of like it's the spectacle and it's the interaction of the crowd with the music,
Yeah.
and it's all these things, and you know, like,
Yeah.
I went and saw Rammstein a few weeks ago in San Antonio.
Yeah, there's a great example.
And holy shit, dude. I have some video on my phone. I'll show you later.
Oh my God, pure spectacle. Where they have to fly their stage in like multiple jetliners.
I want to see a 10-part Netflix series on just
my
building the
God.
stage.
I would love that.
That's what I want. It's like,
It'd be so
Like,
interesting.
you know, 10 days till showtime, man. Just show me every fucking detail. Like
Yes.
from like, this is how many people we have to employ. This is Carol. She makes sure that all the checks get sent out. I want to know every fucking thing, man.
It has to be a full ass business that they have just for running that tour.
Yeah, it's insane. It's amazing. And so, but they did it at the Alamo Dome, which has a roof.
Yeah. It's,
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, like, you see these wide shots of them doing this shit at like in you know, Soldier Field, or like all these outdoor stadiums or stadiums in Europe, and they have like these big tiers of the fire that comes out, and they're like huge. They're all, you know, in the sky. Like you could see them from miles away. Okay. When they did it in San Antonio, they were like, well, those middle ones, just put them on the ground. And so,
Oh,
like,
wow.
And so here, hold on. I'm just gonna show you this.
Because if you've never seen it, their stage setup is like they have these huge, I don't know, not smokestacks, but like these huge pillars that come up from the stage like tremendously high, and they spout fire.
from
the top.
Yeah, and so like, look at this shit. Look at this.
Oh, they just like put it off to the side.
It's just right there.
Like, listen, the fire needs to happen. Just put it over there. just push it
They're
off to
like-
the side.
well, how low
Oh
do we
my
have to
God.
have it so that it doesn't hit the roof? Yeah, man, just put it right over there, dude.
Yeah.
It felt so low to the ground.
What's the
okay?
minimum safe distance?
Yeah,
or the maximum safe
Because
distance, I
we
guess.
were so far back. We were on the floor, but we're still really, really far back. It was like
Right.
right there, you know.
We got to put it somewhere. We got to have the fire.
But I guess like I have no like that stage is so huge. Everything that's going on is so huge. I have no fucking idea what those guys were actually playing versus what's a pre-recorded track.
Yeah.
What's not. I have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
I mean, Till was really singing, but aside from that, you know,
I guess I've watched a lot of their live stuff, even from this tour, and like it looks like they're doing everything they're doing.
does. It feels that way.
But
it feels that way. But they have. But since like keys and extra stuff is like such a big feature. Like I feel like I can tell when I'm hearing that drummer's playing what I'm hearing, that guitarist's playing what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I can't fucking tell. You know, like
yeah, a lot of it's like background atmosphere stuff.
Right.
Unless it's like a song that's a particular like this is the keyboard lead line. And,
yeah.
You know that's happening there.
Right.
But on some level, like it doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly.
Because what their show offers is like this spectacle that isn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're gonna give me some like intimate theater in the round, Bruce Springsteen, Neil Young storyteller shit,
Rammstein Unplugged.
Yeah, or whatever. Then you know you're gonna do that. Then you kick on the laptop. You know what I mean? And you're all sitting on your fucking bar stools with your acoustic guitars. Then yeah, man, that's not what you're selling. Get the fuck out of here. But you know, man, like when you've got a fucking giant dick blasting fake cum and fire all over everyone, then like whatever you need to do.
Yep.
Whatever you need
Bring
to
out
do.
the big fire hula hoop and spin that shit around, the bow and arrow, whatever it is.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
You know, you need a click track. You need a little extra to get that shit done. Whatever you need to do, guys.
No big deal. Yep.
So, but yeah, but yeah, that's sort of like, that's like and again, like, I don't think that it's like, because what was the option, right? What was like the option for like a band like Faceless or Rings of Saturn? And I'm talking about where like, man, I don't know if I'm really digging, this doesn't pass the smell test. This feels weird for me. But what was the option for them? Like maybe they had a guitarist back out at the, you know, like they had someone back out the end of the, you know, it's like, what are they gonna do? Just not do the tour?
Right.
They have to, you know what I mean? So it's like,
well, if you're this band, maybe so.
yeah. And so,
what were they called again? I keep forgetting.
Falling in Reverse.
Falling in Reverse. There you go. Thank you.
And so, you know, it's an interesting thing. So like a funny story that I heard, I wish I could remember who I heard, where I heard it from. Some random podcast, I think.
As you do.
But they were talking about seeing Nile at like a Milwaukee Metal Fest or something. In like the mid or like late aughts or something like that. So back when they would carry around like one of those fucking things, like to have their backing tracks and shit like that, like fucking ADAT machines or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember I did a show opening for The Hunger where they had all that shit, and it was fucking wild.
Yeah. I've seen them live a couple times. Weirdly.
Yeah.
I like how,
you know.
Yeah, I like how their keyboardist had the keyboard stand that like just fucking flailed all over the place, like
That's right.
went in all directions.
That's right.
Because he was like their lead singer, I think, also, or one of the lead singers.
Baby.
But the keyboard stand would like fly all over the place. It was like on this weird pivot arm.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen anyone really use that sort of thing, but this dude did. It was
Committed.
Great. Yeah, it was awesome.
I saw some random footage of a keyboardist in Strapping Young Lad doing some shit like that, but I saw it once and I could never find it again. I have spent hours trying to find it to where I just go like Strapping Young Lad live like 1997, and I just go and I look at every fucking, I'm trying to find it again because this dude was too animated, and I was like, that motherfucker got fired. Like
in this band, no, you do not.
Like this is the wrong, like, I'm glad you have energy. This is the wrong kind of energy.
Do you know what it is that we're lampooning here?
Yeah, like, because he was bringing that hunger energy.
Too
you
hungry.
know? Like fucking pogoing during like, oh my fucking God, you know?
Oh, shit.
But, yeah, but Nile, right? So like Nile has like their whole rack of like to have all their tracks and shit like that, and they couldn't get it to work, and so they delayed start time like by like 10 20 minutes or whatever to try to fucking get it to fucking work, and eventually they were just like fuck it, and they played without it, and the person who was telling the story, they're like, that is the most amazing Nile show I've ever seen, because they were so fucking mad.
Oh yeah, man, that's a whole other dimension.
Like they were like so pissed, and it was so raw, and it was so fucking intense. And I was like, fuck yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah,
that's what's up.
That's a whole other dimension that you can tap into there.
So
I'm sure there's some like you could write some parable about that, of like complacency versus like emotional immediacy or something like that.
What do you mean?
You know, you become reliant on this stuff, but it turns out you could actually do an amazing job this other way. You know,
okay, that
sort of thing. But whatever, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome though.
Yeah,
I would have loved to have seen that.
I would pay good money just to see Carl Sanders be mad.
See them be mad.
Yeah. I'll just fucking to see that man be legitimately pissed and channel it through his fucking instrument. Like I would pay an obscene amount of money for that experience.
Fuck. Yeah, I guess the ideal probably should be like, if you're gonna do that, make it to where you're doing that with the parts that you can do without. Right?
Sure, right. Yeah, it's where you can.
Like, where if something does go horribly wrong, you can still put on the show.
Right,
and have it come across.
Right.
That adds the things you want it to add, but if it's not there, it's not going to kill you. Maybe.
Right.
You know, as time goes on, I'm sure that's less and less possible based on how music is made these days.
Right. Well, and there's just so much variation. There's just so many different ways to do it, you know?
Yeah.
And again, it just depends on the kind of show you want to put out, you want to do. Like, maybe they're like, man, if we do this without this, these songs won't make fucking sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And like,
that's what I mean.
Our crowd, like the people that are here that love our stuff, like they're not gonna, you know, like this isn't gonna make sense to them.
Right.
Or, you know, like this isn't gonna be this isn't gonna sound like the song they came here to hear, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, like, whereas like fucking not for Nile, like they know, like at that time when they made that call, like they know, like they're playing 90% of what's fucking happening there. All that stuff, they know that that's like the extra ornamental stuff that's really important to them.
Right.
But they know that there are people that came there to see Nile.
To see a band playing.
Right. And so
yeah,
it you know, like neither one of these is right. You know what I mean? Like I'm not exactly trying to like shit on Falling in Reverse. I think it's thought it was an interesting thing to talk about, and I guess I'm more than anything. I'm like I'm gonna shit on like Eddie Trunk or the people that are like the Nuge wouldn't need backing tracks or whatever fucking boomer shit that they're like fucking throwing out there, and it's like it's just different. Just different.
The Nuge needs a lot of stuff these days. Backing tracks is the least of his concerns.
I don't think that's what Eddie Trunk said, but you know what I'm saying.
I don't know who Eddie Trunk is also.
Man, he hosts like a show on VH1 Classic or something, like the metal show or whatever.
Oh, okay.
He's like an older hard rock metal personality. Like,
okay.
He's very well known.
Not well enough, apparently.
Yeah.
If anything, that is just a cautionary tale to back your fucking shit up remotely, motherfuckers. Don't just have a laptop. Have that shit in Google Drive, even, whatever. Like, you gotta Dropbox that shit.
Yeah,
like,
have like a set. Like, okay, yeah, you normally like to run it from Ableton.
If you're gonna run it from Ableton, cool, do that. Also, just have it as like an MP3.
Yeah.
That you can play from your phone if you need to.
If you're really backed into a fucking corner.
If it's that integral to your set, have contingencies in place.
Have that shit bounce down to like fucking WAV files split left and right.
Yes.
So you can stereo that shit out of your phone.
Exactly.
And then the left channel is your click track and your guide tracks, and then the right channel is what the audience is supposed to hear. You know.
Exactly.
Like, I hear what you're saying.
So if nothing else, there's that. Back your shit. No matter who you are, back your shit up.
Back your shit up. Yeah. I've got I got shit on like Dropbox. I got 2 hard drives over there. I got an external hard drive. I'm like, because I'm paranoid in like an unhealthy way.
I mean, that pays off in the end, or
Yeah.
hopefully it doesn't have to, but if it does, there you go.
It does, yeah.
I listen to a tech podcast all the time that I'll plug it. It's called Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. It's a dude named Will Smith who is famous for being like exactly. He used to be the editor in chief for PC Gamer or Extreme PC, something like that. PC Magazine. And then he worked on tested.com, which was like Adam Savage's website. The dude from Mythbusters.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like a big part of that. But he's also the guy who has the handle Will Smith on Twitter, so that when anything happens with Will Smith, he gets. So like when Chris Rock got slapped, he had to like shut down his Twitter for like weeks.
Yeah.
Shit like that.
Oh, that's great.
But he's like a nerdy white dude with like red hair and shit. You would never mistake them. For real.
I was laughing really hard at the thought of like, yeah, so this guy's called this, and this guy's called Will Smith, and Will Smith is famous for, and like
for Independence Day.
Yeah. I like the idea that you're gonna like
disclaim this.
Yeah, that you're gonna like explain.
Yeah.
You might know Will Smith from such films.
Yeah.
Like he's an actor.
Let me read.
He's been in a few things.
He was the Omega. No, not the Omega Man. What the fuck was it?
Oh,
whatever. I don't care.
That was what it was based on.
That's what it was based on. Yeah, exactly. I don't actually give a shit.
God, I Am Legend.
I Am Legend.
That's the name of the movie.
Yeah, bathtub dog, all that shit. Anyway, so Will Smith and then a dude named Brad Shoemaker, who is known from video game podcasts like the Giant Bombcast, which I've talked about before. But they do a technology-based podcast where they talk about random tech stuff, but they're always talking about their NAS setups, which is network accessible storage.
Okay.
So it's like a local, or it doesn't have to be local, but it's like a network-based thing that you might run in a separate computer in your house that does nothing but you back up stuff to it.
Okay.
It's the whole point of it.
Okay.
So that you have a backup. And it can be redundant, like multiple backups, and then you additionally have a remote backup somewhere online. So what I'm saying is, if you're that paranoid, maybe you want to look into getting yourself a NAS setup.
I see.
But it's a whole rabbit hole you can go down for like having the right drives that perform well enough and having it accessible in a certain way, and you can tap into it from your phone wherever you are and all this different stuff.
I see.
So, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I don't think I'm that bad. It's nice to know, though.
Okay, I was gonna say, if you think you're that bad, maybe you're not quite as bad as you think you are.
It's nice to know that there are people out there that are worse.
Yeah,
that makes me feel better.
Yeah, you want a technology podcast? Listen to that podcast.
Maybe that's what we should call this one. Rich and Rob made a music.
Rich and Rob made a music pod.
Made a music pod.
Yeah. Doesn't really roll off the tongue like you might want, but
doesn't. We definitely got to call it something besides a Richard Wooten podcast. I thought I was gonna do this shit with other people, just you.
Well, sometimes it happens. Just not today, apparently.
I was gonna do it with other people besides you. I've only done one that you weren't here for.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, we gotta come with another name.
You brainstorm that off camera, presumably.
No, man, fuck it.
For our next segment, we rename the show.
Rename the show. Yeah. So, nah, man. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's a goofy thing, but I don't know. I think about like going and seeing, live bands and shit like that, like specifically in like the death metal thing, and you'll see the whole spectrum of like that, like laptop metal, and then you'll see like Suffocation, which the next time they come to town, I'm gonna drag you there, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they just like they walk out and they set up their own shit, and everyone's like, yeah.
Like,
hey, Terrence. Hey, Derek. Like, what's up, Charlie? And then they like walk off, and they're like, and it's just like they just turn their amps on, make the shits work, and bring out their fucking 3 pedals, put the shit down, do line checks, and then they walk off stage, and then the lights go down, then they come out, and everyone's like, oh! like it's
Right.
like
you could have done that a minute ago. It was the same guys.
It's the same fucking dudes, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's such a cool thing about it feels like uniquely cool about like death metal and oddly enough like funk jam band music too, because it's not about like the it's not really like a celebrity culture kind of thing. Like it's not about it's about the music, you know, and like when whoever's on stage playing the music is the most important. Like that's you know, they are high priests at that moment. But when they're just walking around the crowd, it's just like, hey dude,
right.
you know,
That's really what it is. It's like, oh, you're here to like set up your shit. Okay, that's cool, man. What's up, dude?
Yeah.
Oh, you're here to play music? Oh, did I know? Oh, fuck yeah. Wow.
Right, yeah. You're a different person now.
Exactly.
Like, but yeah, like, it's not like they go off stage and put on fucking, like, masks and eyeliner and shit. Like, no, man, like, they don't even, like, relace their fucking Vans. Like, they just fucking walk off, come back on. They don't even, like, take their guitars off. Like, the guitar's already on. They just walk off and they come back. But yeah, like, they're just, like, nothing. There's nothing. There's no backing tracks. There's the only, like, you get an intro. That's it. You know what I mean? That's the only
like a pre-recorded.
Yeah. Like someone hit like that shit might be on a fucking CDR. Like someone just hits fucking play.
Yeah.
And so, but you have, you know, you have that whole spectrum. You know.
Yeah.
And then you have bands that like they just like you're not hearing anything extra. They just play to a click track. You know.
Right.
That's like a really common thing. Also.
Yeah.
You know. So.
That's one of the things that I still appreciate about Baroness is that they don't have any of the backing stuff.
Fuck yeah.
And they do everything. Like Nick plays their keyboard parts and he has like samples and shit that he runs through live, you know, in person. He'll go over and hit the thing and it starts playing. But John works his pedals and Gina works her pedals. And
that's fucking rad.
It's like you can still just do that and love doing that.
Yeah. And
Cause,
like,
because if you don't like doing that, there are ways around it.
Sure.
And that's kind of cool, I guess.
That is interesting because that does seem to be like that we both like I have like a respect and an affinity for that other stuff, but whenever it's just people up there just playing, like that's really what's gonna be my shit.
Yeah, like that's
you know?
That's what I want to go see if I want to go to the show. That's kind of what I was getting at earlier. Like, what are you really going to see?
Right.
And that's what I like to go see. Is I like to go see the people do the thing.
Yeah.
That they're good at doing.
And I mean, I don't know that I would have been able to like articulate this a year ago, but since we've spent like the past year, like sort of going deep on all of this music that has meant so much to us and sort of like listen to a lot of music from like a specific time period, you know, and like listen, like the one that really comes to mind is like Machine Head's like The More Things Change, and how like the song like Down to None like starts off at one tempo and ends up at a completely different tempo.
Right.
And that this was the music that hit me when I was an empty cup, you know, so to speak. Like just like it became the template, you know, like when I was very impressionable. And so yeah, like it totally makes sense that that music that isn't perfect, or that speeds up and slows down, or that is like maybe a little sloppy or whatever.
Just the fact that music can do that.
Yeah, like
and,
that, but that is that's what I emotionally respond to the most. Like it shouldn't be a surprise because of, you know, that was the music I was exposed to, you know.
Yeah,
that's how most of the records were made in the 90s for the stuff that we listened to. So
right.
Yeah, so of course it doesn't feel wrong whenever I hear music that does that now, right? Whereas if you grew up in a different era and you hear music that's like deviates and is all over the place, that probably feels wrong.
Yeah, I wonder.
That's what I heard someone say, and I can't remember her name, and I feel really bad, but she did an interview on the URM podcast that was really, 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 really good.
What is URM?
Um,
Ultimate Real Metal. No.
Unstoppable Recording Machine.
Oh, that's even better.
Is that what it is? But but URM, they're actually this really, really cool. Oh my God, I'm not gonna find that right now. I'm buzzed right now. But no, it's ran by this guy named A.L. Levy, and he used to play in a band called Dath, Daath, and he started like this. It's basically like an online recording school that specifically caters to rock and metal.
Okay.
And so like you can go and you can like pay, like your monthly fees and all that sort of stuff. And what's really rad is that every month they have like a special like guest. I mean, this is what they were doing. I don't know what they're doing now. They would like, oh man, let's have fucking Jens Borgen come in here and fucking like show us how he mixed a fucking, Dimmu Borgir track or whatever. And like they give you the stems, like try and mix this shit yourself. And then we're going to have like a 2-hour like,
oh, wow.
live session or whatever where you can ask him questions, you know what I mean? And it's really fucking cool.
That's cool.
And so the podcast itself would be sort of an accompaniment to that where they just have like interviews with all these amazing metal producers and shit like that.
Yeah.
And so just such a cool resource. And, but he interviewed a producer on there, and she had worked with like Prince a lot in the early 80s, and she was talking about how like teaching audio engineering and whatnot now, and like this idea of perfection and this idea of, she's like, to me, something speeds up, like the drummer's really, like really pushing this fill, because of the excitement of the music, so it speeds up a little bit. She's like, in classical music, you just call that a performance gesture. It's not wrong. It's unique to that player and how they interpreted that music for that specific performance. Right. And she was talking about like explaining that or talking about that with students. And she said it was interesting because after she talked about it, they were like, oh, okay, yeah, I see that. I see what you're saying. That makes sense. Okay, that's cool. And then she was like, so do you still want to change it? And they're like, oh, absolutely. Like, no. Put that shit on the grid. It sounds wrong to me.
Right. Yeah.
Because they've grown up. If you're younger, you've grown up. You've grown up more accustomed to hearing perfect music. So it sounds kind of wrong in a way that stuff doesn't sound wrong to us. It just sounds like, oh, that's the thing that's happening there.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a weird. I mean, we had talked about at some point, sort of delving into that topic of kids these days. I guess I don't know how to really phrase that, but like how people view performing music and the level of perfection that they feel like they need to get to.
Right.
And the reasons for that and things like that. And that seems like another part of that. Like Polyphia just put out a new song with Steve Vai guesting.
Yeah.
And I listened to that, and they do a lot of sort of similar things in some ways where they will change tempos in different parts of their songs. And to me, like, to no real effect other than to just do it. And they're like the prime example to me of like the band who is the I don't know, the current popular band, I guess, who's like absolutely perfect at everything they do.
Sure.
But it does nothing for me. But it's objectively like incredible.
Yeah.
And, like, it's flawlessly done.
Right.
And that's one of those weird situations where it's like, I don't know, that's maybe a bad example because those people are so fucking good at what they do.
Yeah,
it's clearly what they want to be doing.
It's no disrespect. Like it's not a judgment. It's just sort of like they're a younger band. Their demographic is younger.
Right. I guess what I'm curious about is like how they got to that point
Right, yeah,
of
like,
performing the way that they do.
sure, like what were
It's
their
so interesting.
influences? What did they listen to?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, obviously to have Steve Vai on there, that kind of tells you a little something. But then
Sure.
I don't know, the solo he does on that song is like, this is not not really great. And you're really old at this point, Steve Vai, but man, you're good. But I don't know, this doesn't sound great.
man.
I feel shitty for saying that, but I don't know. That was just a weird juxtaposition.
I feel like I'm in this really, really weird spot where I'm like old enough to feel like I should really, really, really have something to say about Steve Vai, but I'm young enough to have like missed the boat.
I mean, kinda.
The only like piece of music that I've heard Steve Vai play that I like really like connected with, there's like a Zappa record that he's on, like one of the live.
Yeah, because he played with Zappa for a while.
Right, live, whatever, you know, in the late 70s.
Yeah.
Something. It's like one of the most famous Zappa live records. And I really, really love that. But,
yeah, I mean,
you know,
he did a few solo albums in the 80s that I think I
well,
own one of them.
he played with David Lee Roth.
He played with Roth as well.
You know.
Yeah.
And again, like I am absolutely not going to. I have nothing negative to say about Steve Vai, but it's also like that Guitar Hero thing never did much for me.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
So
as a guitarist, it kind of never did for me in a way either. Like,
sure.
I definitely didn't find it aspirational, and I didn't listen to a lot of it. But like, there's stuff that he did that was like, absolutely amazing. Like, For the Love of God is an amazing track. And just the shit that he came up with for that is out of this world. But the thing that I enjoy the most that he did, weirdly enough, was the whole suite of solos in the movie Crossroads.
Yeah.
Where he plays like the devil's hired gun guitarist. And he's just like doing guitar battles with Ry Cooder.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Is who's actually playing the stuff that
Ralph
Macchio's playing in the movie. Well, a lot of it. A lot of the stuff Steve Vai himself is just doing back and forth.
Okay.
But then for certain parts of it, it's Ry Cooder doing it.
Okay.
But that I was able to like learn that whole section that Ralph Macchio plays.
Oh, okay.
That I think Steve Vai actually plays.
Sure.
And I really love that. But like that's my like the thing that I grabbed onto the most. I don't know. Yeah, like you said, like the Guitar Hero sort of thing. The G4 tour, the G3 tours, where it's like Vai, Satriani, Eric Johnson.
That was the first one.
Maybe Petrucci at some point got in there. Maybe like Kenny Wayne Shepherd maybe got in there at some point. They started having other people come in at some point. That music never did a lot for me.
Me neither.
The craftsmanship sort of and the ability to pull it off like blows my mind.
Sure.
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah.
But the musician or the songs themselves never really.
There's every interview, everything I've ever heard. Like every time I've heard like Steve Vai speak about anything, he seems like an absolutely lovely man.
Totally.
So I have nothing negative to say.
Yeah.
There are some funny. Devin Townsend did a podcast where he just sort of like would spend like 2 hours talking about each album,
right,
that he had done, and when he's in like the City era or whatever, he talks a lot about Steve Vai because he was Steve Vai's like vocalist for a while.
Yeah.
And there's some funny fucking shit in there. There's some interesting Steve Vai stories in there.
Okay.
But basically when they did City, Devin had a lot of negative stuff attached to that touring cycle, for that Steve Vai record or whatever, for whatever reason. And so like his infantile, immature way of like working through that was sort of like, I'm going to record just a Strapping Young Lad record at Steve Vai's studio. And so,
I'm gonna defile this place.
You basically,
yeah.
basically, yeah. But
I mean, I think I kind of thinking about it a bit more. I feel like I probably reacted because I came up in the '90s learning guitar with those guys sort of looming large.
Right.
You know?
It's those were like the guys that were sort of like, you're supposed to love these guys. This is it.
Right.
You know.
You need
Steve Vai, Joe Satriani.
Yes, Eric Johnson, who I did love a lot of stuff from, but still lumped in there. But I remember when Buckethead's album Monsters and Robots came out and became sort of a thing. I really latched onto that.
I see.
Because it was fucking weird.
Right.
But it was as good as those guys.
Sure.
Technically.
I see.
Like, Buckethead could clearly play anything that they could play. But he was doing this weird shit. And I was like, that's what I like. I mean, like Les Claypool helped produce that album, and Bootsy Collins was on that album, and all this stuff. So it was like way more interesting in that way.
There's something interesting there. There's something fundamental there. There's a thread there because of sort of like of that time period, right? Because we talked about this with Dime, how like Dime's solos and like his approach to like virtuosic guitar playing, how it changed on Far Beyond Driven.
Yeah.
And how it got weird.
Yeah.
And I posited, was like, this is like Far Beyond Driven is that's why he will, as long as people play the guitar, you will have to talk about Dimebag Darrell. And I think a part of it is because of like not just the sort of Guitar Hero amazing stuff that he did on the first two Pantera, Cowardice from Hell and Vulgar, but that knowing he could do anything, and then he chose to go fucking goofy. Yeah. And approach solos in such a weird, interesting, but emotionally affecting way. The way that he did on Far Beyond Driven and like Great Southern Trendkill, of, like trying to do something novel, trying to like express a unique emotion, you know what I mean? Instead of just shred, you know, or just show off a melodic prowess or whatever, And I wonder if like that's like a theme for the fucking 90s in a way almost. I don't know, like this kind of like deconstruction of technicality in a way.
Yeah, I could see it because that was what the 80s metal scene was like built on, right?
Yeah, like man, Eddie Van Halen sent us down a path, did he not?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Eddie, and then Yngwie popped up, and everything was absolute perfection, and then Paul Gilbert as well in there.
Sure.
And dudes like that, like amazing.
But that's still Eddie, man. That's Eddie kicking the door open on all that, isn't it really?
I mean he certainly, I think, lit a fire at everybody's ass.
Because that's like 1978. And that's the thing too, is that, man, Van Halen's so unique because you have this guy who's like elevating the capability of the instrument, and his band is an incredibly popular band. Yeah, because those two things don't normally. Yeah. Like you can talk about all you want, Steve Vai and Satriani and all these dudes, but they never had the level of fame, like wide fame, that Van Halen of
has.
Like cultural relevancy.
That's much better way to say it.
That a Van Halen has.
Yeah, totally. And few like guitar heroes have had that, like Hendrix.
Sure.
Stevie Ray Vaughn, probably, if you want to count him in there.
You don't have to count him in there.
I mean, I don't know. I love Stevie Ray Vaughn.
Oh, do you? Oh, man.
Yeah. I have I don't know, man.
I've had one really, really bad experience with a Stevie Ray Vaughn acolyte if you will.
Okay.
So that's
I can, for what it's worth, I can see that. I can understand that. I mean, so like, whenever Johnny Cash covered "Hurt," and Trent Reznor was like, "That's his song now."
Okay.
You know, that's how it was. I think with he wasn't alive at that point, but to me, that's how it came across when Stevie Ray Vaughan covered "Little Wing."
I got you.
For Hendrix.
Yeah.
Like he made that. Hendrix's version is still that song, but to me, Stevie Ray Vaughan just like made that his own thing.
Or like Dimebag and Planet Caravan.
Or that
is a good example.
There's another
too.
good example. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
sure. Like, oh, you've set up shop inside of this song.
Yeah.
You live here now.
Pretty much. Like you can have that one. Pretty much. I don't know. I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. I never have a problem with Stevie. But I can see how you would have an interaction with somebody who would give you a problem with Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Dude, there's a whole subset of fucking guitarists who are really into Stevie Ray Vaughan and Eric Clapton that are goddamn dog shit guitarists to fucking play with. They are They are the worst musicians to ever fucking play with. I cannot express this enough. Because and I've gotten paid to work with some of these people, and it was terrible. And because like this one motherfucker, this was like, okay, cool, I'll count the song off, we'll jam. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4, like he just starts soloing. Like he didn't even establish a groove or a chord progression. Fuck all nothing, man. Just fucking started throwing licks, man. And all he wants from me is to play boom, boom, like he just wants me to be a metronome that fucking loves what he's playing. And oh, it's awful. In another regard, but that guy was really into Stevie Ray Vaughan. So that kind of was what soured me on the whole thing. But there's
I don't know that I would say that Double Trouble did anything particularly incredible on their own. Like they were a great foundation for what he was doing, but that's kind of what they were.
Well, no. I disagree. Yeah? I would disagree with that, and I would say like the drumming, like the drumming done. I can't think of the drummer's name, and that's an absolute disservice to him because he's an incredible drummer. That's like playing that blues rock style it's very unique in a way that's not very flashy. And so it's not it's not something that like is going to be real exciting for like drummers to learn, but it is unique and it's tricky. Like, and I didn't really understand how difficult it was to make that shit work until I joined a cover band. And
sure.
And luckily I was sort of like the backup for like the main drummer. So I got to like do rehearsals with the main drummer of like, all right, try to play that song, Richard. And I try to play like fucking Hey Joe, you know, or ZZ Top or some shit like that or whatever. And he's like, all right, so let's try that. So let me show you how to do it. You know what I mean? And it was such a cool, Mike Grove, man. Shout out to fucking Mike Grove and Al Hayes, man. Love you guys. But I never would have thought that music would have been so fucking difficult to play until you take what the drums do, like listen to a Stevie Ray Vaughn song.
Yeah.
If there's any drummers out there listening, listen to any random fucking blues rock Stevie Ray Vaughn song, and like imagine taking the drums away, and now that's all you. Like that's like that feel, that pocket, that solid foundation. That's gotta all come from you. And wherever, like, you know, wherever Stevie Ray pushes or pulls or whatever he reacts against or to, you do not follow him, sir. You keep that foundation because that's your fucking job.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's unique, man. It's a different kind of discipline that's...
It's like you need to be S-tier fundamentals at that point.
What do you mean? What's that mean?
Oh, fuck. You don't play video games. You need to be top-level fundamentals.
Well, it's not even... I wouldn't even say that. I wouldn't even say fundamentals because what they're playing is... I wouldn't even necessarily say it's a fundamental. It's just a unique skill set.
Okay. Like
that-
Liam Neeson is what you're saying. Okay. He will find you.
Well done. Well done. Well done.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just it's a very, because like when you're a young drummer, you hear like, or when you're like a young drummer in the fucking 90s, you hear Dave Lombardo, you know, playing, you know, or you hear like Raymond Herrera, you know, you know what I mean? Or fucking Danny Carey, or all these things, and you're like, that's exciting. Oh my God, that'll be so amazing to play. Or even like Neil Peart, you know? But you don't hear the guy in Double Trouble going, you don't hear that and go like,
Right.
oh fuck yeah, you know?
Yeah, right.
You hear that and go like, my friend's dad listens to stupid music. You know?
I mean, it was never, for me, it was never like even derision towards them. It was just like, they're obviously doing a great job at keeping things under control. Because look at what the fucking Stevie Ray Vaughn's doing over here.
Right.
Just going off in his own world, making his ugly faces, playing some of the best shit of all time. So clearly they're doing an amazing job. Otherwise, he wouldn't have them there. Like
Chris Layton.
Chris Layton, thank you.
Yeah, that's the drummer. Wait, God damn it. I gotta get this guy's name right.
Shout out to Chris Layton, though, whoever you are.
Yeah. He's certainly one of the drummers.
Okay.
One of the founding members of Double Trouble. So, all right. Chris Layton and all of his successors.
His progeny.
He also played with Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Okay.
That checks out. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, anyway, but yeah, like,
you need to be good at what you do to keep up with guys like that.
Yeah, well,
that's pretty obvious, I think.
It's just it's a specific thing, man. Like, and it's a thing that you can't fake. Like, you have to have done that. You have to have, you know, learned that discipline, and it's an art form in its own right.
Yeah,
you know,
and honestly, that's probably a compliment paid to them that I don't necessarily notice anything that they're doing, because that's the entire point, right?
This is when that thought right there is when I realized that Steve Ferrone is maybe the best goddamn drummer alive.
And he is.
He played drums on Tom Petty's album Wildflowers.
Okay. I knew I'd heard that name.
Yeah. And so that had become one of my favorite albums, and was one of my favorite albums for like 5, 7, 8 years, you know. Like, I got it not long after it came out, and you know what I mean? And it was like 2005, like almost 10 years into having and loving this record, knowing every lyric, knowing every song frontwards and backwards, before I noticed the drumming. And then that was when it hit me. That's when I realized, I was like, oh my God, that's what great drumming is in this genre, in like singer-songwriter, pop, folk, or whatever. That's the S tier drumming.
Nailed it.
Is you know, whenever it just makes the song amazing, but you don't notice it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about that record. We will end up doing an entire episode on that album for sure.
I would expect no less.
Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
It was only very recently that I don't know. For some reason I got it on. I started listening to a bunch of Tom Petty songs the other month.
You really can't go wrong.
Yeah, I've always loved a lot of his stuff, but
drop that needle any goddamn where.
But it never hit me just how many tracks are off of his solo stuff.
Yeah,
in like 92, 94. I was like, I know all these songs. I think what it was like, I know all the songs that I know. Let me see where they come from. Let me see which Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers albums they come off of. It's none of them.
It's his
fucking solo albums.
Full Moon Fever,
yes,
or whatever, Wildflowers.
Yeah. Wow.
Wildflowers.
Wildflowers. Wow. So yeah, weird.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like that. But seriously, like that album is, and like now when I listen to it now, it's crazy because to me the drums are it's such a drums forward record. Like the drums are really loud in the mix to me on Wildflowers, and but it's still a very like minimal it feels like a very minimal production. It's a very clear production. You can hear goddamn everything that's happening on there. It has like that same sort of clarity that you hear. I mean, it sounds silly, but like in like a Pantera production, like on those first like 2 Pantera where it's like, oh, that's exactly what the bass is doing. That's exactly what, you hit a ride. You hit the bell of the ride. Oh, okay. You know?
Yeah.
Or you hear absolutely every note of every instrument. They're those kind of productions, you know? And so but for the music to be as minimal as it is and to feel as sensitive as it does and to be so drum forward, that's what makes it. That's why Steve Ferrone is goddamn a god tier fucking drummer, because that means he's hitting that snare in the exact same spot every fucking time.
Right.
That it is, and he's hitting the hi-hat in the exact same spot. When his accents are the exact same as all the other accents for it to be as exposed as it is, but it to not distract from like the minimal guitar playing of Tom Petty and like because he's not fucking Robert Plant. Like his voice is like, delicate's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying.
It's like low key.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's really chill.
Yeah. And so when you have like over like that kind of like almost talking in key.
Yes.
Thing.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Talking in key.
That Tom Petty does. And it works. God damn.
Yep.
God damn it, guys. God damn. Fucking Steve Ferrone. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, consistency is a skill you have to have in that situation.
Dude, that guy. Jesus. Oh.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Anyway, but yeah, like, why are we talking about Stevie? Oh, we were talking about guitar heroes. Guitar heroes. I think Stevie Ray Vaughn is why Jeremy started playing guitar.
Huh.
I think he saw some Stevie Ray Vaughn shit and was like, oh my God. Yeah. So, but.
Fair, yeah. Dude was fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had another like weird interaction here actually with a dude that came here to do some stuff. I'd actually worked with him before. He was building a studio at his house, and he had paid me as like a drum consultant, basically, like to help him buy a really awesome drum kit for his studio.
And you were like, my consultant advice is get a friend to make it for you.
Well, he'd already built the studio.
No, the drum kit.
Yeah, that would have been ballsy. I was like, you'll have it in 2 years.
Yeah. What up, Zach?
And yeah, and that was real frustrating in its own way for like just have you heard me like give my bullshit spiel about why I hate DW drums?
No.
Oh, you haven't?
I don't think so.
Okay.
If it's happened on one of these podcasts, then I am proven wrong.
So
let the record show.
DW makes great fucking drums. All right. First and foremost. But I get mad every time if I ever show up to a studio or a gig or something, there's already a drum set and I play a snare. I'm like, man, this snare sounds awesome. And I look and I see it's DW. I get fucking pissed. Because DW is every guitar player's favorite brand of drums.
Okay.
All right. Like that's like if you talk to like some random guitarist or older guitarist who has really expensive guitars, they all think DW makes the best fucking drums.
If you play a PRS, then
then you're going to think that DW makes the best drums.
Okay.
Now here's the thing. What DW's done marketing wise is just really smart, because most drum companies Tama, Pearl. Like, you can buy a fucking $500 entry-level Pearl kit. You can buy a $1,200, like, mid-level Pearl kit, or you can buy a $5,000 blow your socks off fucking Pearl kit.
Okay.
Okay? Like, your export series, your whatever series, your master series, you know? And they all got, you know, whatever. They all got different lines or whatever.
Yeah.
DW only puts the DW logo on the high-end shit.
Okay.
They have a separate company called PDP
Right.
that they do all their entry level, you know.
Yeah. Your Gibson, your Epiphone, your
Yeah, basically. And so, but what that means is that anytime you have seen a DW drum and you've heard a DW drum, you're hearing an amazing drum because it's the top shelf, right? But you've probably heard a real shitty Tama drum set and a real shitty Pearl drum set, and you've probably heard some really good ones too, you know, because you can't look at that Tama logo and know if it's a Star Classic or a fucking Imperial Star or Rock Star or whatever, you know. And so, but just because of that, I got so mad because he gave me his budget. And I like worked within that, and I just put a lot of time researching, trying to figure out exactly what he wanted, and like I think this is what we'll do it within that budget. And then he was like, "Well, I just decided to get a DW and these other cymbals instead anyway, for like much more expensive." And I was like, "You fucking dickbag."
Well,
like you just paid me to tell you that it was okay to spend that amount of money. Fuck off.
I guess if you're the kind of person who can pay someone to do that, then fucking whatever.
Yeah. Nice guy. Okay. Like I don't want to shit on him. But anyway, but he, you know, he came here cause he wanted me to help him with like a song he was working on. And this was wild because he plays it for me. And I'm like, this isn't a song. This is a feel. Like this is like a vibe. And this is you just soloing over this vibe, you know?
Okay.
I was like, here, let's jam, you know? Pick a tempo, pick a key, whatever. Let's just jam. And so we start jamming. And like within like a minute or like 2 minutes or whatever, I'm like, you've run out of ideas and I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are not thinking harmonically. You are not thinking about chord progressions. Okay? Like, Eric Clapton's your hero. Fine, whatever. You know, Eric Clapton was still an incredible rhythm player. Right? Like, I grew up, like, seeing the VHSs of, like, Eric Clapton playing, like, with Phil Collins and Nathan East and shit like that. Like, Eric Clapton and Friends, you know, or whatever. Where you were like, here's Eric Clapton backing up Phil Collins while he does In the Air Tonight. All right? I was like, Eric Clapton knows how to make, this is the thing. Eric Clapton knows how to make other people sound good. Like, Eric Clapton can just fucking chill and play chords and be a great rhythm player and enhance the rest of the music that's going on. Right? I was like, you're just trying to do the cool shit. You got to go, you know what I mean? Right. You got to go study your chord change. You got to go study all that harmony and shit like that. Cause that's how you're going to be able to keep your ideas and keep these things going. You know, like don't try to play what Clapton plays. Try to imagine you're hearing what Clapton's hearing, right? Like you need to hear the rest of the band. Like you need to be listening to what that drummer's playing. You need to be listening to what that rhythm guitar's playing. You need to be listening, you know what I mean? And it's just like,
yeah.
It's fucking wild to have like that experience of sort of like you've gotten so far in this and you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like you've never been responsible for making someone else sound good.
Yeah. There's a weird, well, I'm not going to get into that analogy, but like I have a similar understanding of playing guitar where like if you are at the level Clapton is at or guys like that, stuff like riffing on lead parts and solos and whatever, it kind of comes like second nature. Mm-hmm. It becomes like a thing that is more of a feel than you're actively thinking a lot about.
Okay.
I think a lot of the time. Whereas you're able to think about the things happening behind the scenes more.
Sure.
Or maybe vice versa sometimes. Maybe you're able to automate the stuff behind the scenes and the chord changes and whatever, and think more on the lead playing, I guess. But like, I was never able to internalize. I never got good enough at that part, the sort of bass, the foundational part, that I could have the rest of it go on autopilot while I thought about the other things. I was every bit of it was always in the front of my mind.
Well, that was never a style you were attracted to, though.
Well,
Right?
I was attracted to it in some level. Like I always, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Stevie Ray Vaughn a lot of times,
Right,
and stuff like that. I don't like Eric Clapton, so there's that.
Like as a person or as a player?
Yes,
Oh yeah, I don't like him as a person either.
both.
Oh, okay.
Both. But like, I mean, I fucking love Zeppelin, and it's kind of the same thing in some ways. Jimmy Page is
Jimmy
playing.
World Page?
Jimmy Eat World Page.
Jimmy Page World?
I was gonna say Robert Page. His playing is the same in some ways, but also our music never called for that. So that's another part of it.
Right.
But when I did play with other people, I was never the kind of player who could do those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I guess is what I mean.
Sure, yeah.
And that's a thing that you need to be able to do, I think, to make that sort of Eric Clapton-ish thing happen to the full effect.
Right. Yeah.
You can't just come out with, I thought of a cool lead part and that's it.
Yeah.
You have to have there has to be a rationale behind it, and that means having a rhythmic and a harmonic progression behind it.
Yeah. Like
So,
you gotta it's gotta be a song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, like, and you can have songs that are like chord based, or you can have songs that are riff based.
Right.
You know, and a riff can be anything. I'm using the term riff real loosely. A riff could just be a hook. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a,
Yeah, but that gives you a foundation to build upon.
Yeah.
Of any sort.
Yeah. Like, and so like by a riff, I mean a part that has to be played like that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's-
Whereas you can have music that's chord based, and it's like, well, you just have to fucking hit that C major 7, then you gotta hit that F major 7.
We're going from here to here to here to here. How you get there, whatever.
Just those. We need some subset of those fucking notes so that this melody works over it.
Right.
Or you can be a riff where it's like it's got to be that. It's got to be that thing. Ka-kung, 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 whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
You need to be able to hold that in your head while you're doing whatever else is you're doing.
yeah.
So.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's you could have done all that if you would have been in a band that called for it.
Maybe.
Or if you would have been interested enough in that thing.
I was certainly never interested in doing that.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
I like
Maybe.
the idea of you like busting into the garage and being like, all right, I already introduced you guys to Meshuggah and made y'all play shit like that, but now we're doing 1-4-5, bitches. Like 12 bar blues, suck my dick.
ZZ Top all night long.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I like the thought. I like that thought. So, but
Yep.
you got anything else?
I think I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about Eric Clapton anymore, honestly. That's kind of where I'm at.
I'm not gonna open that up. I have so many like. That's beside the point of the fucking conversation. To whatever. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But cool.
All right. Cool. Well, adios, party people. So this is the first Rando cast.
Yeah, unscripted, unfiltered, unsolicited. Perhaps.
Yeah.
You didn't ask for this.
So if you don't like these, then harass everyone who's ever been a guest on the podcast and make sure that they never cancel. Because you're gonna get one of these every time that someone cancels.
True. If you don't like these, tell a friend and tell them to come on the podcast.
Yeah,
be reliable.
If you know anyone in the greater Houston area,
Who wants to talk about the sugar for an hour and a half?
literally.
Later.
We did it! We did a random cast!
It was like 2.5, something like that. Okay. Commendable. That's too long though. We're still too long. How the fuck are we so long?
I don't know, man. Because like
damn.
there's this weird thing that happens where it's like, oh man, it's only been 20 minutes. Oh, we're at an hour.
Oh shit.
Okay. And then it's a fucking time warp. Literally my mind goes blank. You know what I mean? I lose executive function and fuck all,
Yeah.
And the next thing I look up and it is whatever time it is that we decide to stop at.
Yeah.
Everything in between an hour and when we stop is a fucking blur.
Whenever we both notice we get tired.
Yeah.
Decide that it's time to stop.
Generally an okay time to stop, yeah. So.
Oh, fuck.